workshop in the public for the purpose of conducting district business. It is not to be considered a public community meeting. There will be an opportunity for citizens to address the board as indicated on the agenda. If you plan to make a public comment, please fill out a form and give it to Stephanie at this time if you have not already done so. Thank you. All right, Stephanie, can I get a roll call?
Mrs. Fruit?
Here.
Mr. Pierce?
Here.
Mrs. Dickey?
Here.
Mrs. Rossmansky?
Here.
Mrs. Jones?
Here.
Mr. Welch?
Here.
And Mrs. Jewell? Here.
All present. All right, can we stand for the pledge of allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, at this time, we have citizens' request to address the board. And please remember, this is a time to address your concerns on both agenda or non-agenda items. This is not a two-way communication. Please direct your concerns to the board, and you are limited to 3 minutes. Mrs. Jones will keep time and raise her hand when you have 30 seconds remaining. If warranted, the school administration will reach out before or at the next regular scheduled board meeting, which is June 6th. All right, let's see. And Stephanie, I have you up first again.
Okay. I'm still Stephanie, I still live on 2nd Street, and I still live in Fenton as of 1992. I do have a copy of the badge being sold, and I'm going to be emailing it to all of you, so there will be no question that it was being sold. It was being sold at Cause and Effect Gallery. I just think it was poor on the Fenton Union, if they're going to make something, copyright it, if you don't want somebody else using it. And that would have been the appropriate thing to do, but what's done is done. The thing I want to talk about is I've been watching some of the meetings on video, so I may get the date wrong, but I want to talk about the slackdown that was done on the community. I believe it was the April meeting, where somebody invited everybody from the LGBT community that they could, saying we hate you. All the media you can invite was invited. I mean, it was so well organized. I mean, I wasn't shocked. That's what you guys are supposed to be, like a well-oiled machine. But you're supposed to be working with us. So again, I respectfully ask that you remove collaboration with our community from the mission statement, because you don't. You slapped us down good with that meeting. When you invited the media, you falsely led the LGBTQ community to think that we hate them. We're against the badge, not them. Now I feel like I have to go around telling all my lesbian and gay friends, I love you, I don't hate you, my issues with the badge. So that meeting caused so much trouble. And if you dare to say it wasn't political, you're lying. Not only to us, you're lying to yourself. Like I said, that meeting, the media, the wearing of red, you know, an LGBTQ community from Flint came, apparently invited. I mean, that's fine, it's a public meeting, but you did all of this to slap us down, to put the bad parents in line. You are not working with us as a community. You are not listening to us. I've never been this upset coming to a school board, I don't think ever. But I tell you what I'm gonna do. My daughter's a teacher, she said, Mom, my kids are not going to Fenton schools. Okay, I'll homeschool them. Anybody wants to homeschool their kid, I will get a background clearance, I will get a bus or minivan, and I will drive their kids to a different district.
Jannette R.
My name also is spelled Jannette, and I live in Fenton. So I'd like to talk about the division that this board has allowed to happen to this community. One of your agenda items tonight for this workshop say maximizing team effectiveness. There was no context provided, but I can take the statement at face value and suppose that you want your teams and your subcommittees to be as effective as possible. So please tell me how that is possible when one of your board members, Ms. Prue, posts political far-left radical articles on her Facebook page that essentially lies about conservative groups of people and vilifies them. How is it she can sit on a subcommittee that's supposed to come to some kind of compromise? It's clear to all of us exactly what her agenda is, and she isn't even hiding it. She was even quoted as saying so, and said, "We must and we will work to re-elect Democrats to local office and to the top 3 statewide offices with Governor Whitmer, Dana Nessel, and Jocelyn Benson." And for those that don't know, Ashley Prue is currently the Genesee County Democrat Party Chair. She's supposed to be bipartisan.
Can I stop you? Could you please refrain from calling out members according to the Open Meetings Act?
Okay, all right, sorry. So, someone on the board, and I'll repeat it, someone on the board is the chair for the Genesee County Democrat Party Chair. How is this person being nonpartisan, neutral, or able to sit on a committee to talk about compromise? I'd like and I would like to ask her to step down from this committee immediately. I don't believe she's capable of serving the people in that capacity. I also have one other question that has to do with, Emily, you read every time about this not being a two-way conversation. I understand that. But when will it be that the superintendent finds it appropriate or warranted, I think is the word you use, to address the concerns presented at public comment time? You say either at this meeting or the next meeting. Is there record of any one time that the superintendent has publicly addressed the concerns specifically or the questions by parents? I'm all for talking and discussing and communicating, and all the meetings that I've come to, I've sat here quietly. I understand, you all know that a lot of us don't agree on things. But I wait and see, is anybody gonna say hello? Hey, thanks for coming to the meeting. Can we talk? Anything like that. There's never anything. So I would like to ask for the superintendent to either make changes or resign. Thank you.
So my name is Brian Eltringham. I'm also a Fenton resident here. I spoke at the last board meeting. That's a perfect segment way for me to start. I want what's fair and truly equal, okay? And Open Meetings Act or not, we all know what we're talking about when somebody can't be equitable and fair. So I'm asking the board, specifically I'll say even the chair of the committee, the subcommittee that's gonna be headed up, I'm asking you to call for a motion to revote on who the members should be on there. I don't care who they are. They've got to be somebody who isn't going to be blatantly open to not even showing at all that they can be open to being equal and fair and equitable between both sides. Okay? I just want it to be fair. We've already got 2 board members that voted for the match against 1 that said they didn't. I already don't feel that that's fair. What I also don't think is right is I emailed this whole entire board twice. I received 2 responses. 2. Shame on you guys and ladies. That's not how I should be treated as far as a response goes. Coming back from a community member that's concerned with all fair questions, being reasonable to what I've asked. I don't want to have phone calls privately. I'm not looking for that. You came here to do a job, and I expect you to do it because you work for us. Let me remind every single one of you, you work for the people. And I can promise you some of you are not going to be here if you continue down this path. I have sat back and not tried to get too political and ugly with this. But I'm gonna tell you right now, if you're not gonna work for the people, it's not your opinion, it's not your views, it's not what you want, it's what the community wants. It's what the teachers or the parents and the students want, okay? And too many of you are looking at what you want, or what your wives or your husbands want, or your political view. It ain't about you, and it ain't about your party, okay? It's about what's right in our demographic, right here in Fenton. And you're not listening. You're not listening. Do a survey. See what the majority wants. How come nobody's answered that to me? It's a simple fix. See the data analytics. See what we want here in Fenton. I don't care about the 5%, quite frankly, because I want what the majority. I'm a democracy. I'm not a dictatorship. See what they want. Why are you afraid to do that? Why? Why can't you answer any of us? I heard this not being answered stuff, and I thought, no, this ain't right. I don't believe it. Let me go find it out for myself. And when I start asking the hard questions, you guys all hide. That's all I got. That's it.
Just the three, Stephanie?
Yeah, that's all I got.
Item number 5.1, Kingscott Facility Assessment Presentation.
Doesn't make you want to say anything, or somebody jump in?
I just want to lay out a timeline real quick, if that's okay. So, when the school year started, our 5-year strategic plan had expired. It was extended a little bit due to the pandemic, and as we continued to kind of get back to the normal set of operations, the strategic planning process for the next 5 years began really in earnest in August. And during that first semester, there was a lot of listening and feedback and strategic planning sessions that took place that lent itself to the need to have a facilities study. And a lot of that facilities piece continued to come up throughout the fall. In January, we released architecture RFP. We brought Kingscott on board along with our longtime partners, AUK, and asked them to do some work and examine all of our facilities. Earlier in the winter, Kingscott literally went through every room, every hallway, every tunnel, everywhere in the district, and came back with a facility study that they presented a little bit earlier this semester to you. The other reason why there was a need to do this is we will have some bond debt falling off that if the deadline for which is July 1 of 2024. And so the district, in conjunction with the facilities need identified in the strategic plan, a facility study completed this winter, again engaged AUK and Kingscott to look at what our needs are for a potential bond issue where we would be able to continue to levy the same amount of dollars, or I'm sorry, the same amount of mills, and generate approximately $124 million in projects with no increase to the taxpayer. So what Kingscott and AUK are going to share tonight is kind of how that number and how that process has been honed down. We've done a lot of work with various committees, a lot of feedback from the staff. And I will just kind of conclude with tonight, it's a presentation on essentially what the final rough draft looks like. And then we will take to the board a formal board action at the June 5th meeting, if the board is so inclined, to approve a preliminary qualification application. And what that means is that we will go to the Michigan Department of Treasury where we have to present our needs. Michigan Department of Treasury looks at what we're proposing to construct. They also look at our enrollment, our class sizes, our classrooms. Kind of have to get Treasury's approval for two reasons. Number one, if we were to go for a bond, we're using the state of Michigan's credit rating, which, as you can imagine, a district of 3,100 students versus the state of Michigan, their credit rating is a little bit better. And then secondly, that preliminary qualification application process is for the state to double check and make sure that districts aren't proposing to construct something that doesn't meet the needs of their student enrollment or meet the needs of their population. So with a timeline perspective, we would present that to the board on Monday, June 5th, ask the board to approve the preliminary qualification application, which we're essentially gonna kind of go over in big picture what's gonna be in there. I'd ask the board between now and tonight if you have any questions about these things or any concerns. Like I said, we are in kind of that final rough draft format. To speak with Mrs. Sosowski or I, we can get your questions answered between now and June 5th. And then, we would have our second meeting in June, our budgetary meeting on June 26th. That would be to approve the final preliminary qualification. So on June 5th, we're kind of approving what we take to Treasury. Usually Treasury will have us tweak a couple things, that's completely normal. Come back on the 26th and say this is the final application of the Treasury revisions. That would be a second approval. And then, no board action in July on this particular item. And then should the board choose to do so, we would have an action item on Monday, August 7th to authorize an election for November of '23 that would allow us to, request, the extension of that debt, so that we're able to bond for no increase, and realize this $124 million in project. So said differently, two different action items on the bond app itself in June, and then a authorization of the board so inclines on August 7th at our regular board meeting. With that said, I will turn it over to Dan and Rob from Kingscott, as well as Donnie from Hawk. They'll kind of walk you through what this $124 million would look like, and a little bit on the timeline as well.
Okay. So we handed out 3 different items, and I see most of you are looking at the site plan on the high school. So that's where we'll start. There's another handout that was 8.5 by 11 with some blue and out name on there. We'll look at that. And Doug was just describing a little bit of the other 8.5 by 11 with the yellow highlights, which is the timeline. We want to make sure you understand what the concepts are and what the cost is, and then what the timeline is. Heidi and Doug just wanted me to remind that the district did the survey work in September, and there were some big things that came out of that. So I just wanted to reiterate those here, and you'll hear of those in the concepts as we go. So air conditioning was a great big one that was important to the community, to create an environment that's very good for education, which is what the purpose of Fenton Area Public Schools is. Safety and security was another item that came up, and there are a lot of improvements in each of the buildings to improve the safety and security for staff and students. STEM and STEAM, so there was a lot of community interest and importance and prioritization around that technical educational piece. So there are additions at the elementary buildings to support that. Performing arts was another one. So when we came and presented before, we talked a little bit about the high school auditorium. And so there's a recommended project in there to improve the auditorium and the facilities that go along to support the performing arts at the high school. Athletics was another big one that the community said we would like to see some potential improvements there. So some of what you're seeing on that very first sheet of the high school is pointed at athletic improvements. And then the last one that was kind of a higher priority with the community was exterior improvements. So the high school building has looked that way for a long time, and we've talked about maybe doing some things to improve it. The addition at the auditorium would certainly kind of create a new entry lobby piece on the south side of the building. And then there's money in the proposed bond scope as well to do some improvements at North Road, State Road, Tomac, and World of Wonder as well. So with that said, I wanted to just touch on some of the other groups that we have reached out to. So when Kingscott first came to the table, our first contacts were the administration. So we spent a lot of time with Heidi and Doug, but we also spent a lot of time with Joe from a facility standpoint. and started to hear and understand, you know, the district. Donnie has been with the district for a while, so Donnie and Jim on their side of the team were valuable for us in understanding what was going on, what has been done in the past, what maybe wasn't done in the past that was always a, hey, let's think about this in the future. On March 15th, we met with the Education Foundation, and there's some city council members on that group as well. So we got to kind of hear what was important to them moving forward. We had a workshop with yourselves on March 20th, where the first time we got to kind of talk with you about what's important and where the district wants to go. On April 12th, we met with the PTO members and the booster members with the same idea, trying to understand what's important, what are the things that if they changed a little bit, we could deliver a better education to the kids of the community. And then on May 1st, we met with every staff member, not individually, but we met with the elementary groups on a professional development day, met with the middle school, met with the high school, shared what we knew to date and gathered feedback from them. We even had them do like a little dot exercise on some of the information so that we could kind of immediately see what the priorities were and what the feedback was. Looking at the concepts a little bit, so that site plan, when we were with you guys on May 1st as well, that same day as professional day, we shared some of this imagery. So the high school sheet that you're looking at, the first one, shows what currently is in the numbers that are on the other 8.5 by 11. So at the high school, I'm just gonna kind of talk through it. We've got, from an addition standpoint, there's an orange box on the south side of the high school, which represents potential auditorium expansion. There's another orange box just south of the building we're in right now, central office, and it's described as multi-use building. So an idea came up to create a standalone building that could be used by kind of everyone from an athletic standpoint, but also robotics and other academics in there. So there's a project there. Near there, we're showing relocating shot put and discus, which currently are a little further away from the track area where it's maybe a little too far, so we're trying to get that closer to the track. You can see the track is highlighted as well. So from a timing standpoint, it's probably time to reconstruct the track. So that's included in this as well. Then getting closer to the high school proper, you can see furthest to the west, there's a oval that's described as improve this for practice fields. So there's area there to the west of the high school that we're talking about just grading, seating, so that you can do more athletic practice in that area. And then to the right of that, we're showing a new baseball field, and we're showing upgrades to the softball field as well, so that those two fields are new, appropriate for the sporting activities that take place there. Then getting closer to the south where Donaldson Drive is, you can see the soccer field is slated for improvements. There's also a yellow line going across Donaldson, or parallel to Donaldson Drive, so that's the proposed new sidewalk for pedestrians, for students. And then I believe we've got the tennis courts called out as new construct, so those would be completely removed and then put back in the same location. And then you can see on AGS, one of the key things for safety and security at that building is to create a new office area. So there's an addition in orange on AGS, and that's where visitors to the building would be brought into the building, and they would be brought into a secure vestibule that would lead them into a check-in in the office before they could get anywhere else in the building. I think that's
You
sort of
covered it,
everything.
except you missed one,
Which one did I miss?
concession building.
Oh, yes. So as we were kind of looking at different ways to locate baseball, and tennis is where it is, but there was an interest to get a concessions building that would fulfill tennis's requirement baseball and softball. So there is a small orange box kind of in the middle of all three, where there would be bathrooms, concessions, and storage for those, athletic events.
Covered it.
Got it?
You got it.
I think the high school one, that very first one, had more changes on it than the others. So as you page through, I don't know that we'll go through each one, but North Road, State Road, and Tomac are all about the same. Tomac has one little exception. As we were exploring different options at Tomac and trying to balance costs, keep things as economical as possible, what you're seeing on Tomac is that where the kindergarten rooms are now, we would take those and we would remodel those so that that became the new office, but the footprint would change. In previous versions, we were suggesting maybe demolishing those kindergarten rooms and then building a new office space, but to sort of save on costs, we think we can remodel that and make that quite nice, and from a square foot standpoint, it's very appropriate for a new office, plus some of the itinerant space and itinerant group space. So I think that's the only exception on Tomac. And the others, I think, are very similar to what you looked at on May 1st at our last meeting. So, any questions on those images that you want to go into any more detail on?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So, big change on this multi-use building, because last time we talked, it was gonna be kind of hooked to the high school.
Yeah.
Is there a reason why? Was it just space, or what was the reason for that change?
Yeah, so the reason was, initially the first idea was connected to the high school. And then we talked about, well, maybe there'll be times when the community needs to use it separate from having access to the rest of the school building. So then we kind of pushed it 30 feet away. And then as we were trying to figure out what to do with baseball, softball, tennis, kind of moving pieces around on the map, all of a sudden we said, well, maybe it makes sense to not build 4 new fields, but build the 2 new fields and take baseball in its current location, move it, and then put multi-purpose over there where we could in the future expand it. We were limited a little bit with the previous version being close to the high school, and we certainly were limited, and we had to move more pieces from a baseball, softball. It was getting more expensive to put it closer to the high school, because we had to do a parking lot. So where it's located now, there's a lot of parking right there south of it, and we thought that might be a good way for the district not to have the burden of that extra cost to build more parking.
Well, I personally like the change, because I wasn't a big fan of having it connected
To the building.
to the school, only because if we are gonna allow the community to come in and based on whatever the plan is for it, if there's a, indoor track or stuff like that, I kinda like to see it a little bit separate than having, not that I'm, don't want the community to be around, but I just think it's just a little bit safer to have it kind of away from the building. So, no, I like the change, and it probably is a little bit cheaper when we don't have to do the, asphalt drive and,
Right,
all of
right.
that stuff. Yeah, no, that's great. One last question.
Sure.
The, AGS entrance, I guess my question is this the same layout as we've been looking at from way back when we had planned,
Yes.
the sale of the property? It's the same layout concept and everything?
We're actually, we've advised that everybody, we keep the architect the same, and we do that, cause we've been estimating that one from the inception. So that's why if you look at the dollar portion, AGS comes out of the gate first, because those drawings are pretty much done.
Right.
There may be a couple changes that we need to make, get some eyes on it again, but that one, yeah, I think we've estimated it 3 times.
Okay, yes.
But it's
And
the
don't
same.
put any more, because it keeps going up, okay?
I know.
That's all the questions I had, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, so what's the square footage of the you call it multi-use?
Multi-use, yeah. So we've looked at a little bit of a spectrum of size, so on the low end, it's about 31,000 square feet. And on the higher end, if we can afford to do it, it's about 45,000 square feet.
So what do we lose or gain between those two amounts?
So the layout is sort of loosely based on what Linden has, loosely based on that. If you've been through there, we toured it, just to go take a look. So, what you lose is more of the big open space in the 31,000 versus the 45,000. We're still talking about an elevated walking track, and we're still talking about a big space for either basketball, baseball, softball, cheer, whatever, a high bay space. We're also talking about a high bay space for robotics, so that they can kind of set up their practice and not have to take it down every time they use it, like they do in the current facility. So you have some two big high bay spaces, and then we have a pretty small office space. We have a wrestling room, which isn't small. It's appropriately sized for 2 wrestling mats plus a little bit of space beyond. We have group restrooms, because people in the buildings are gonna need to use the restrooms. We have a little tiny concession space. We have 2 changing areas, sort of like locker room changing areas. There's also robotics, kind of a classroom space. So if they're not out practicing their competition, there's a smaller space where they can work on things and they can do kind of a classroom size space. So in the 45,000 square foot, those all get just a little bit more comfortable.
My concern was like, if we're looking at the smaller and I see the little future portion, like how do you add on, like the track would still be the same size track, I would think, right? Like you're not gonna be
Yeah.
changing any of that, so if we go with that smaller size, it's going to be smaller than.
Yeah, so you're right, you're sort of building this 4-sided track, and on that side that you expand to, you'd either have to live with it there, or at the time you expand it, you'd have to take some of that down and move it over. What we were trying to do was create the bay spacing of the pre-engineered frame, so that you could down the road say, hey, let's go out another 50 feet, 2 more bays, or let's go out 3 more bays, 75 feet. You could almost double the size of that 31,000 square foot building because you have room, and it just would depend down the road what you wanted. We just wanted to not put you in a place where you couldn't add to it.
Right, I like it better over here too, for that reason, but I just in my head was thinking, well,
Yeah.
it'd be a whole lot to, if you add on to change what you've already got there, but.
Yeah.
So I just wanna make sure I understand, for the 13 million, then we're looking at a 31,000 square foot facility that we would potentially down the road be able to add on to, but the basic structure of it would remain what it is, and it would be more like classroom or open space that we'd add.
Yeah, you could continue to add high bay, because it's probably gonna be about 35 feet tall on the inside. And I think that version is 150 feet wide. So you could continue to add 25-foot bays, and either point them at high bay multi-use, or some smaller, kind of classroom stuff to support what's already going on in the building.
Thank you.
Yep.
Is the current wrestling rooms, since it occupies, I believe, 2 rooms right now, that would then go back to converted classroom?
Talked about building storage there, but it could be classroom space. It's just that, it's a little bit small now for the 2 mats. And the building principal and some of the staff had said, hey, let's create a place for central storage.
It currently is really not a wrestling room, it's a converted classroom with a mat, so.
Is it 1 room or is it 2?
It's 1.5 technically when you look at it.
Can I do a go back?
Yeah.
So what would the cost be to do just the larger one, the 45,000? What does that
Let's
change
see.
from the 13 million?
Probably about 10,000 square foot different.
I I'm not sure if we had a number on that one in our Rev
Well, you're at,
5.
you're at $420 a square foot right now, 31,000 square feet.
So $4
So
million.
you just extrapolate, but I would assume it'd be a little bit less if you're adding on.
Yeah, we probably save some from an economy of scale,
From a square footage standpoint.
but probably around that $4 million mark. Any other questions on concepts? So otherwise we'll kind of shift and look at costs.
So really, that is a breakdown per building. What we have in front of us are the goals that were laid out in front of us. We were here in March. We all know we had done the assessment, we had looked at the pricing, we went anywhere from 250 million to 300 million in needs. So the team has been working together since then. I think we've been meeting about once a week, and as you can see, we're up to revision 6, and we feel as though now this is dialed in. It is the 3 elementaries, making sure that there are classroom additions to those buildings, some selective site work, and most importantly, the mission was to make sure that air conditioning was in those buildings. What we've done with that, based on the series layout of a potential bond, we put in the dates of when construction can actually start. So the 3 elementaries that are there first, it will not be a consecutive run because there's gonna be the addition, and we'll have to do some of that work over 2 phases because, you know, we still have these short summers that we get to do construction. As I said earlier, AGS Middle School, that project is just about designed. We'd have to take one more look to make sure that we can get it submitted to the state, but that project can happen first. Of course, starting with the addition, make sure the secured entry, so we have that going in March of 24. The high school, we broke out the multi-use building from the high school, so the high school in that layout includes the auditorium, it includes all of the site work for the moving around of the outside athletics, and it also includes all of the infrastructure for the building. That one is a good 2-year project, if not a little bit more. Once we have all the drawings finalized, we'll know for certain. But that one, I envision us doing over some phases. The addition can run on its own. It's just when we're working inside the building, we're gonna have to look at how we can phase in for mechanical and electrical and those changes there. So we slated that one to start in 26, which all of these things are going to coincide with the bond series. We'll have a little bit of overlap, but that will all come out in the wash. That leaves us Ellen Street. I had attempted to get Ellen Street in with the other elementaries. It just, the way that the series was gonna run and the amount of work that was needed at Ellen Street, that one, it needed to get started in May of 26 and finish in September of 27. Administration building and transportation, those are pretty self-explanatory. The bottom line is the multi-use building is slated for May of 29 and completion in 30. That will coincide with everything else that's happening on the high school campus. We have to move a field in order to put the multi-use building. We're gonna be working around all of the events, high schools, middle schools, elementaries for that matter. They're all used 24/7. So this works for the cash flow. It works for the design schedule by the designers. We'll still need, we have time built in there. They're gonna be designing their little hearts out. And to make sure that we've allocated enough time to phase the work so that you can keep buildings occupied, and we'll be working around in occupied buildings as per usual.
A lot of second shift sort of things.
The date of elementaries, I didn't catch that one.
So for North State Road and Tomac,
Is it the date? Oh, per year.
so I've given what matters to you is when construction starts. There's gonna be things that happen as soon as the bond passes. Potentially there's great outcome with the election. So, there's a lot of design, there's a lot of planning, there's a lot of things that as a district, your input would be important. So November of '24, that gives me a good fall start for an addition. That would be my target. There's also, as you all are aware, a lot of lead times, and a lot of questions about electrical components. So if we do have a successful vote, that's gonna be a focus to make sure that if we can get an early bid package out, get those things on order, and hope that we get service before 18 months. So by the end of '26, the fall of '26, I think that those 3 buildings will have their addition complete, HVAC complete, everything done, and then their sites complete.
I have a quick question on AGS. So we see the addition, and I know we've seen variations of what will go in place of the existing office. From a monetary standpoint, where did we land on how that space, that current space will actually end up being used?
So the current thought is that, a chunk of that space will become the other science room that they want. And then there's just enough square footage left over in that area to create the special services office. So those two added together are about 4,800 square feet. And we figure about 1,800 square feet for science room and support space, prep space for that science room, and then 3,000 square feet for special services office.
Is that special services for the district or just for that building?
For the district.
The district special services will
Let's
run
get
on
rid of those two
AGS then?
houses.
Yeah, so
Okay.
what basically that is because of the kind of looming universal preschool that we're gonna have to institute, we need to pull back those classrooms that special services currently inhabits at Elm Street, so that those can become preschool classrooms. So then our special services department needs a place to go. So that then, part of that office will now become special services. It's a little bit of a cost-cutting structure as well. I mean, when you have $300 million worth of kind of asks, you wanna try to pare down some of that office space so that you can put it back into kids' stuff, right? So, because there's an existing office structure there, we can kind of pull out some of that science, need that we need, but then keep some of the office structures there and put special services there.
I like that better than the houses.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then we don't do anything at all with the little houses behind North Road then?
No, well, you can
That's
decide
gonna
what
stay
you want.
We can
Storage.
decide what we wanna do with those,
That's
that it,
good.
yep,
Stay storage or
Yep.
change into the classrooms or something?
or maybe the ISD will come back and need them, that would be great.
Yeah.
That's true.
Or we Airbnb them.
That's right.
We gotta find money.
Any other questions?
As far as the traffic pattern, you know, the proposal that you guys put together for AGS, with the office being moved and everything, does that in turn change the traffic pattern from its current state, which was already changed a couple of years back?
Yeah, I think,
Again?
yeah, I think you're gonna have, because we're gonna have to do something there at the office edition, to make sure visitors get close and have a chance to park. So I think, yeah, it's gonna affect some of your traffic flow. I don't know if we'll get something different for bus drop, that sort of thing, but I think that would be one of the things we would study at the beginning of the design side of it, so. Donnie,
Yeah, I think what
Is
we're
that
looking at
already
too is buses
designed?
will continue to stay where they're at, and parent drop-off will stay currently where it's at, which is right by where that site work needs. So where you see where it says site work received, this area, that will be small parking for visitors, but that parent loop will stay the same. Yeah.
Similar question to our other buildings, are traffic patterns going to be, because I
Yeah.
know that has been part of our conversations too.
yeah, We looked at, doing something at Tomac in the back, doing something at, North Road in the back, near the two buildings. As we costed those out and kinda talked to building principals, there wasn't a ton of interest in that. So right now, the only thing that's in there that's affecting the traffic pattern is Tomac. So at Tomac, everybody comes in on Third Street and can kinda go through there, and then they can go back out on Fifth Street, and that's where they mingle with the buses. So on that diagram, there's a little circle that kinda says, hey, we're gonna split those two up. So that, parents will use Third Street and come in, loop to the entrance and loop back to Third Street. And then buses will be on a separate route on Fifth and loop around and go back on Fifth. So that was a pretty economical way to sort of divide that traffic and make that a little more separate.
It's a coincidence that we're talking about this at the aerial view that you have on North Road Elementary has all the cars lined up.
They're following the rules.
So, yeah, we looked to put another loop in the back at North Road, just thinking that maybe more stacking space, more, so that both loops that are actually off of North Road could be dedicated to parents, and maybe buses came off of Wood Street. But it was just a lot to do back there, and then, Genesee County storm water was gonna be expensive, and so it felt like there were other needs that were more of a priority.
The other thing that we talked to our PTO people, they definitely want, who doesn't want traffic relieved? But I think having a parking area in the back of a building that allows access to the back of a building was a bit of a concern, which I agree with them.
Yeah, playgrounds back
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
In Ellen Street. So the multi-purpose building is slated not till 2029, 2030, correct? So I know there were lots of conversations, like if we do or we don't have a multi-purpose, like what kind of reconfiguration for robotics would need to happen. We talked about locker rooms, or what type of work is gonna be happening there to maybe help them currently, but know that we don't wanna retrofit too many things if the end goal is they have a new home.
Yeah, no, that's a good question, cause we did talk about like redoing the stage into an area that was high bay that they could use for practice space, or redoing what used to be the girls locker room. But right now, we weren't planning to do anything, so that's why I say that's a good question, because we probably wanna do something before 2029, so that they have a better
Yeah,
experience.
they won't be currently kicked out of their areas, cause they'll still have their
Yeah.
areas.
Yeah.
They just won't have that high bay, they just won't have what they don't have now,
Yeah.
right, until if we get that multi-purpose area. Cause they don't currently have a high bay facility right now, they literally take it into the gym, set it up, practice, take it down, move it all back to their workshop every time they wanna practice.
What do we currently use those locker rooms for?
Those are currently,
Just
storage, some storage,
Some of them have been converted into almost to preschool and art room type scenario, cause they've got the floor drains in them,
yeah.
easy to clean up.
So where will the things that are at the WOW facility where the 2 stories gonna be demoed? That
Where do
doesn't
they
happen
plan?
until 26, done in 27?
Yeah,
So where are those things going once that happens?
so I think from a sequencing standpoint, yeah, we probably don't wanna take the 2-story down until we have a home for the gear up in the thrift store.
There's the two-story demolition is kind of a tricky deal, cause every time we've ever done a renovation there, state fire marshal loves to walk in there. So that is me pushing that into the middle, and then we are gonna have to find places for everybody else, because I don't want to do any, renovation there and not have that two-story addressed. So we've looked for homes for all of the functions, but I don't believe that that's all been mapped out yet. So that's why pushing that one off a little bit is not a bad thing, because we have to settle up everything else. But that's one of those, sticky ones that I really don't wanna get in there and start doing something and deal with the state fire marshal again, who just loves walking through that two-story.
Could we use the houses for, like, the alternative end? I mean, that
Yeah.
sounds like or
Yeah,
even the
and,
community share store.
yeah.
Yeah, to look at, if they're just sitting.
I just didn't know if we really discussed what would happen
That's
to
a
those.
great question.
And I think as Donnie kind of pointed out, sometimes it's hard because that two-story can't be brought up to code. So the minute you go into that building, they're gonna look at that two-story and say, you can't really do anything else until you bring that up to code, does that make sense? So then, you know, the idea is taking the two-story down because it can't be brought up to code so that you can get into the other parts of it. So it's just kind of it's a sticky wicket.
Yeah, and we're just gonna have to work through all of the details of where does everybody go, where do I get some swing space, cause I have to close off that end, and not everything is developed, so everything is so high level right now. That's one that's going to be, tricky to make sure we have everybody taken care of.
But instead of the Airbnb.
Yes,
That's
yes.
a good use.
Well, you
Yes.
saw my face cringe a little bit, so whenever we decide we're gonna go ahead and move something into another building, I'm like, oh my God, then I'm gonna have to get that permitted and open that can of worms, so.
Yeah.
It is those things that we have to really think about once you've had time to absorb this. I just think it's been, not to pat ourselves on the back, it's been a lot of work to hit the goals and, you know, everybody's input and have the pricing models every time we needed to shift things, so it's
Well, there's a large span of time too.
well, which is kinda nuts, yeah, when you're sitting there thinking about, 2030, and I'm like, yeah,
Yeah, like-
it's right around the corner.
You know,
That's
but you
my
anticipate cost is that far out.
Yeah.
but yeah.
Yeah, that's my question, is this projecting additional costs for years down the
So
road?
what we do in the bond app, yes, we factor in what's called an escalation.
Okay.
That doesn't protect everything, but it does protect the budget, protects the design. Let's hope we don't have another 21, 22, where things were going up 50%. We are not overly conservative, we are comfortable with the escalation, but that doesn't mean we get to rest. So yeah, there is escalation built in there. But, there's also, interest and all those other things that go along with that, so. Any other questions?
Any questions on the timing? So I went over that pretty well, but, so we'll see you guys again on June 5th.
Yes. And again, board members, any questions or concerns that you have a chance to digest this, that you're interested in the answer to prior to June 5th, just let us know and we'll work through, each step to get those prior to the 5th.
We continue to meet as a team kind of weekly. Wednesdays at 2 o'clock is our time to meet, so if you guys have questions or if you wanna come in and kind of sit in and listen to what a team meeting looks like, feel free. As long as we don't have to board.
Well, thank you all for your time.
Thank you. house, Scott? Is it Morel?
It is.
All
You
right.
got it right the first time.
Great.
Not the month or moral. It's Morel.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to come out and spend some time with you guys. It's been a while since I've been to Fenton. I've been here a long time ago. I did strategic planning about 10 years ago with you guys, so there is some history with you guys, so it's nice to be back. So, I appreciate the opportunity. We're gonna spend a couple hours. This is not a CBA. If you take one of our classes, that's not what tonight is. This is a discussion, it's a workshop. It's for you guys to discuss, ask questions, that kind of thing. Don't get hung up on all the slides. There's extra in there. We always do that so that if something jumps up, we can go to it and have a slide for it. But I want it to be more productive for you so that you leave, go, yep, that was 2 hours well spent. Versus going, oh, is he done yet? And out of here. So I'm Scott Morrell, I'm the senior facilitator. I've been with MASB Consulting with them for 18 years. Yeah, 18 years now. I was a school board member, so thank you. I served 2 terms on our school board locally, so I know what you're going through. Luckily, when I was on, we had money, so you don't have to ask, what do I have to give up to get something? It was back when we actually had some money, you could try some new things. You don't have that, listening to you, the construction that you have, looking at, you gotta be spot on in every decision you make, and so that's a tough place to be, so thank you for being school board members in Michigan in 2023. So I just wanna get to know you a little bit, so I'm happy to go around and got 3 simple questions. Who are you? How long have you been on the board? And do you have children in the district? And so what grades are they? Okay, go ahead, Stephanie.
I'm Stephanie, I'm the secretary here at the administration building. I'm here for going on 2 years and I do not have children.
Okay.
My name is Renee Jewell. I am a school board trustee as of January this year. I have older children, but I do have children in the district with the last name of Jewell that are related to me, so.
Okay.
I'm Matthew Welch, been on the board now for 2 years, back in January, and 4 children, all graduated at this point from Fenton Schools.
Great.
Hello, my name is Dana Jones. I am the vice president on the board. I joined the board January 2015 and served some different roles. I do have children in the board, or in the school. An 8th grader, soon to be a 9th grader, and a 10th grader, soon to be an 11th grader, and I also have a spouse that works in the district. So I'm gotten a little
You're a lifer?
Yeah. My name is Emily Rossmessler. I've been on the board since March of 2019. I currently have 3 kids in the district, 1 in young 5s, 1 in 2nd grade, and 1 in 4th grade.
I'm Pam Dickey.
I'll come back to you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
No, go right
Go ahead,
ahead.
Pam.
Just wants to know about the board. I've been on the board for 6 plus years, as treasurer, all 6 years. I have 2 sons that just graduated last school year, so I'm currently in the district.
Mike Pierce, also a lifer, class of 1986, taught 20 years at the high school, and I had 2 kids that also graduated from Fenton in 2017 and 2020, and but I'm new to the board as of January.
My name is Ashley Prue, I'm also new to the board as of January. I have 1 elementary student and 1 student that will be a future elementary student that's too young.
Go ahead, Heidi.
Heidi Siselsky, superintendent of schools, been with the district since 2010, in various capacities, and superintendent as of July 1.
It just gives me an idea of what the length of service is, what the expectations are. I always like to know about children, because if it's a high board that has no children, it's a different discussion than you have a nice mix of some with legacy, some with graduates, some with students in, so it's a nice mix, so it's a little different kind of conversation, so. I'm done here. Yeah, oh, there it goes. You have a copy in front of you, you put it up on the screen mostly for your community to be able to see what we're talking about too. So what's the one topic you wanna talk about today? If I ask you for one topic, right off the top of your head, I'll start over here with Ashley, what's the one topic you hope we discuss tonight?
Overall governance, because I'm new.
Okay? Mike?
Yeah, I'm just getting comfortable with the process of the board, so, governance, and also, I've been kind of interested in education, so, you know, the education process of getting to know things, cause even though I've been in the district for 20 years as a teacher, you know, there's still a lot of things that I have to learn,
From this side of the table.
From this side of the table.
Yeah, and it's a total different animal
Yeah.
that we find. Go ahead, Kim.
Well, I guess I would say that, just to make sure that we are giving all students the best education as we can.
Okay. Emily?
I would say, student focus and teamwork.
Dana?
I would say teamwork, just because I think it's been several years since we've had so many new members on the board.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Mickey?
Pass for a second, I'm not quite sure.
Oh, you're not ready yet, okay. Renee?
I guess I'm focused on some comments from this evening. Somebody said something about the community involvement, and I kind of heard her say that more than once, and how do we do that as a board where we're elected to do things, but how do we make them feel a part?
Okay. Stephanie?
I would say teamwork, getting back to a high functioning board.
Okay. And, Matthew, you gotta come back to you.
I mean, I think she hit the nail on the head. As far as
Community and how we connect that.
How we do that.
Yep.
Effectively.
And what's our role in it?
Yeah.
Because there is a specific role for the board in community, and so we'll talk about it. And Heidi, from superintendent's side, what do you hope we talk about tonight?
Just getting back to being able to kind of do board business and, kind of getting to the point where people can, have conversation, sometimes agree to disagree. And overall team effectiveness, I think that's something that I think, just because we do have 3 new board members, you know, we've not been in a situation in the past, since I've been a part of the district, where, that didn't come naturally. And currently, it's just not coming naturally, so we need to kind of work on some improvement.
Yep, we can definitely work on that tonight, so. Remember doing this? 3 of you should remember this really easy, cause it was just recently, right? Some of us, it's a little longer to do. What is this telling us though? What is the oath of office actually telling you? What's it mean? What's the first one? Support the Constitution of the United States. So what's that mean?
We will uphold the Constitution.
What's that?
We will uphold.
All of them, exactly. You're gonna follow the laws. We're gonna make decisions, but we have to follow federal laws. That's what we just swore to do. The Constitution of this state, same thing. We swore to uphold the Michigan compiled laws and all the other rules that we have to live under as board members, as elected officials. And then you agreed to be the member of the Board of Education to the best of your ability. Okay? It's the best of your ability, not what I say your ability is. It's a self-professing, you have to look at yourself. And you have to do it on a regular basis. Am I giving it up? Am I the best person in that seat? What do I have to do to get better, kind of thing. We're gonna talk about some things that you can do to get better. But you swore an oath before a notary. You actually signed a piece of paper. It's a contract. You actually signed a piece of paper saying, I'm going to do this. And so it's got repercussions. It's got some juice to it. And so I always like to start out to remind us, very first action you ever take as a board member is taking your oath of office. It's the first official act we do as a board member. So it's just a good reminder. Remember, we take this on not only for the benefits, and there's a lot of benefits, right? Seeing those kids go up through the years and graduations and just listening to the track meet out there, all those things. But we also take on burdens. And you know those are. You know, finances, student achievement, unfortunately, student discipline, which is never a fun one for board members to have to make that, or staff. Education, sometimes it's tough, because mandates keep changing, and yet we swore an oath to do that, so we have to remember. So what do you think about this? Student achievement is the ultimate measure of educational value. Agree or disagree? Oh, what, Renee, say it.
I don't think, there was a lot of, I was a teacher as well, I'm a retired teacher.
Okay.
I guess my first initial thought when I looked at that is I have students in my classroom that might not necessarily do well on some measured assessment, but they could show their positive things they could do in other ways than maybe that assessment. So it's not, to me, it's not always measured by a particular assessment, but they have to look at the whole child and see what they bring beyond that.
Okay. Anybody else wanna take one side or the other? Go ahead, Ashley.
I agree with Renee. I also, the word ultimate bugs me a little bit because it seems very absolute, and I don't live in a world of absolutes, so.
And what's fun is people see this, well, yeah, you're right, it's why we're here, and then you start tearing it apart and go, ultimate's a tough one. Is education or student achievement. If you know what student achievement is, what is student achievement in Michigan? What's the definition of student achievement? We have to jump over this artificial bar, right? It's, are you proficient? That's student achievement. And so when you look at it, is it the ultimate of student achievement? It's not, it can't be. Now, student growth, which is what we use now, is looking at the same child over 2 points in time, a much better measure versus proficiency. And if you think about it, student growth, we can have 100% growth now. Every student can show growth. How's that happen? From the valedictorian to the last person, you know, whatever number the last person is, whatever their ability is. How does we get 100% growth?
Find something to measure it, and, you know, it could be different. I mean, I'm thinking about my personal experiences.
Sure.
Third graders, you know, maybe not, they all couldn't read, but if you take little Billy, who couldn't read this much at the beginning year, and now, there's student growth. You
Right.
can't not look at that as achievement.
Right.
For that.
But it's not achievement, it's growth.
Yeah.
Achievement is the
Right.
bar.
Everyone's their own individual
Right.
child, and so.
What's
you
nice
need
about
to-
student growth is you actually set a target for each
for each
student.
kid.
Each student gets their own target.
It's a lot of work.
It is, but if you think about it, we're actually writing an individual education plan for every student now. Because we're saying, okay, student one, you're a valedictorian, you're in 12th grade, you should be second year college work, right? And the lower end is, we get a year seat time equal, or a half a year of education for a year of seat time, that's their growth target. And that's why we use nationally normed tests and those kind of things. Use NWA, yeah, which is a great test because you get 3 test points. What's really nice for us is if a student's not there, say they transfer in your district, if they're not there, their first test would be the mid-year, not some artificial number from the previous one. Whereas before, with me, or MSTEP, if you showed up on the day of test, you got tested. And that's tough on kids, because they're already transient. I'm in Warren, and if you know Warren's history, they're a very big Chaldean community. Well, Iraq war was going on, they were getting kids flown in every day, who were then having to sit down 2 days earlier, being in Iraq in a war zone, and now taking the UNSTEP initiative. Was never fair. That's why they've moved away from the achievement, because we only teach the middle 80% of student achievement. Top 10% will go above the bar without our intervention. They're just gonna do it. And the bottom 10%, unfortunately, anything we do is not gonna get them to that proficiency bar, which is an artificial, sometimes hidden bar. It changes. And so that's what growth is all about. So we have to understand what growth is. And when we're getting data, we have to understand what's the growth data. Not the proficiency data, what's the growth data. And you get, we call it death by 10,000 paper cuts, because you get a lot of paper with a lot of data. But you have to understand how to use that data. And that's where, in this evaluation process, we do a lot of touch bases so that We're not getting it all at one time and you're trying to synthesize it at any one time. With NWA, they get results 3 or 4 days after the touch. So the very next meeting, they can come to you and say, okay, our growth for this period from spring or from fall to June is this number. Not MSTEP, which takes 6 months to come out, and we don't get it first, the newspapers get it first. And it's just this artificial horizon that's really tough. And so that's why we wanna push growth. That's why you need to know what growth is, and you need to know what your growth scores are in your district. Not by building, not by grade, by the Fenton schools. What's the district growth? You need to know that. You should have that in your back pocket. So if somebody's talking about what's going on in Fenton, you should be able to tell them, well, here's our growth scores right now. We just got NWA or this test or pre and post testing in high school or ACT or whatever those measures are. You should have that available to you in your minds, in your playing cards, so that if somebody asks you, you have that information. Because that's what we're about. How do we grow children? It's not just proficiency. It's not just books, right? Unfortunately, we have to do a lot of non-book type learning now, right? When kids come out, can't tell time, right? Make change. It's funny when you go to McDonald's, give them a $20 bill, and then they put it through, and then they go, oh, here's the nickel for you. And they're like, you get 95 cents plus your nickel back and whatever else, because they don't know how. And that's our failure. That's the school's failure. Financial literacy. I have a 34-year-old, my oldest is a PA, physician assistant. She can't tell time on a sweeps watch. They always learn with their phones and digital. So for her, it's a hard time. She has to use it to take blood pressure and pulses. But she couldn't look at it and tell time. She can see where the watch is and know how many seconds have gone off. But that's our failure. As parents, as board members, as communities, as learning institutions, we didn't give them everything they needed to be successful. So when we're talking about student achievement as the ultimate, it can't be. We have to take all that other stuff into account when we're doing it. Okay? Perception equals reality. What am I trying to get you to think about here?
Each person has a different perception, so what is the reality for them?
In reality, their perception is their reality. You ask about community, that's one of the biggest areas. Because we fail to communicate, okay, with our community, what's going on, here's what's going on. And so in lack of evidence, of information, it gets made up. We see it all the time. And so their perception is their reality. But it may not be your reality or really what's going on at the board table. And so we have to be careful. You know, you can't just throw things out there with half-truths. You've got to be honest with it. You're an elected official. Everybody expects us to lie. We can't. We have to be upfront because we affect kids. It's a little different when you're in a township and you know, going over fire budgets and police. That's adult issues. We deal with children issues. And so we've got to step up and be a little stronger. Perception is reality is huge. Okay? And this is where we get in trouble. It's one of the 4 imperatives for ethics. When we aren't open and honest, the perception comes against us. It's one of the 4 caveats of ethics, being ethical. And one of the moral failures we have, and we see that all the time, is perception is reality. You're perceived to do something when that's not true, because we haven't done our work. We haven't talked why we vote. We come in here, we've done all our work, we're ready to vote, 7-0, go. Well, how about if we talk about how we got to this point? So your community knows all the work you've done. That, oh, by the way, we've had 2 community meetings, we've had 3 board committee meetings, we've gotten packets, you know, on this information, because the community doesn't know what you're going through. They just see you here, right? So their perception is 7 people doing whatever the superintendent says, and everybody's happy, let's go. And that's the farthest from this earth. Because we do get a lot of information. You have a lot of preparation. It's not. Maybe we get sold the fun jewel with 1 meeting a month to run. Anybody get that story? I always love when I get a board member. Yeah, they lied to me. It's like, yeah, more than 1 meeting a month or 2 meetings a month. It's all that preparation time that really starts to take over when you get couple hundred pages in your board packet each week, weekly notes from the superintendent, all the updates that come in between. That's a lot of that information to synthesize. So even at the board table, we sometimes, you may know the answer, but sometimes you may ask a question so that we get the correct answer out there. So board community knows, hey, we're not just throwing it against the wall, that we've actually done our work and we're understanding where they're coming from. 7-0 is a sign of, a lot of times it's a sign that's working well. Because if you have to vote something no continually, and it's not for a personal issue, but it's the merits of it, then we got a big decision. Because now we're not communicating with our superintendent and they're making decisions without all the facts. But see, good superintendents will know their team, will know where the water lies. They're not gonna put something on the agenda that you have to continually vote no for. It doesn't protect their career at all, doesn't help us, right? No one wins because now we get into, well, you said no again. Why do you say, we get in that personality or we get really defensive. I said no, and I say I'm gonna support the majority, but we go out in the community. Yeah, but I voted no. I support them, but I voted no. Everybody knows who voted how, believe me. Before you leave here, if you voted tonight and before you left here, I guarantee people in the community know what's going on. It's just a fact in life now. And so we have to understand that. We have to share that. You have to talk about it. You have to explain that to your community because that's not their job. They elected you guys. They expect you to do it, but they expect you to do it with some transparency. Here's why we do what we do. Here's what the numbers come out. Here's what the growth scores look like. But perception is really somebody's reality. And so it's hard to get off that perception, so it's easier to get in front of the perception. Don't let it start avoiding the no. It's a lot better if we get in front of it versus it's caught fire, because that's really, really tough to put that out. And so we have to understand that. Agree, disagree?
Agree.
You guys are gonna make it hard for me.
I like it.
Let's talk. So vision, have you had a discussion in 23 about your vision as a board? No? What's vision? What does it tell us?
Strategic plan.
Yeah.
Talk about strategic planning.
Well, it could be strategic planning.
Yeah.
Strategic planning is a visioning exercise. But who's responsible for the vision in the school district? I'm sorry?
Us.
You got it. It's only 7 people who can set the vision for a district. We set it, who carries it out? Superintendent. They can't set the vision because it's the Fenton community's vision represented by the 7 board members. You set the vision. I'm not saying write a new vision statement every year. Not what I'm saying. But you have new people coming in this year. You have a new team. You're expecting to already know day one what your vision is and what does it mean to you guys. Right? And if you don't have that discussion, and we don't understand where the new people are coming from and get everybody to own the vision, not just buy into the vision, it starts, that team you kept talking about, that's where it starts to go. Because we haven't heard everybody. And so that's why we say, I always tell boards, January, when new board members come on, have that discussion. In a work center like this, takes about an hour. Why did you run for the board, Stephanie?
Well, I'm not on the board.
Well, why do you work? Why are you here supporting the board? Why are you here supporting the board then?
Oh, well, for the student, obviously, to
Students?
make things run easier for them and to try and keep them organized.
That's a tough one. Renee, why did you run for the board?
For students and parents.
Students and parents. Matthew?
The same.
Okay.
Just- Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. Dana?
Yeah, students.
Okay. Emily?
Student.
Students? Pam?
When I ran for the board, Fenton Schools was in pretty tough financial shape. I mean, their fund balance was under 1%. That's why I ran for the board, because it couldn't continue and we were cutting student stuff and it had to be fixed, so that's why I ran for the board.
That's fair. Mike, why did you run for the board?
Students, parents, and staff.
Okay.
That's what I was, so,
Yep.
wanna make sure that everybody's taken care of.
Yep. Ashley, why did you run for the board?
Students, Primarily student safety for all students.
Okay? Now, that took 2 minutes. Now you go into the discussion, okay, what's that mean to you? What does safety mean? Is it, you know, we always say, when do we get a phone call on safety? Anytime students are, well, you got how many students in your district? You'd be getting calls every day, multiple times, because students are falling out there every day. It's just human nature. But if we're not communicating what we expect, what we think, what we know, what is safety to me? What's financial responsibility as a district? Yes, you're in good state, but what does that look like going forward? Because that's your passion, and that's why you're the treasurer. And we got new board members who are students and staff and community, but we gotta share what that means. When you're saying students, staff, and community, doesn't really tell me a lot, right? It's a pretty big, and that's why we have to have that discussion. You have to have the discussion as a team. You take the vision statement and you chunk it down until everybody has the same understanding and agreement. It's not a bind, it's consensus, I can live with it. So you have to have those discussions because that's one of 3 jobs we have. We make it harder for ourselves. What are our 3 jobs? I just gave you one. Set the vision, what are our other 2 jobs? I'm sorry?
Budget
No.
financials.
Nope. I'm sorry? Policies 2. I'm sorry? Nope.
Evaluate the superintendent.
Superintendent, hire and evaluate the superintendent. Those are our 3 jobs. Budget comes out of the vision, because if we don't have a clear vision, how does the district write a budget? Because they don't know what you guys want. You're just signing the checkbook willy-nilly, hey, go have fun, because we haven't told you what we wanted. Have you had discussion as a team this year about what you expect from your superintendent? Or are you working on last year's goals? That's the discussions we have to have so that everybody's on, so you own it versus buy into it. Which is why MASB kind of pushes for January to December cycle, so that as new board members come on, you set expectations, you work with the board for 12 months before you evaluate. It's not fair to have you evaluate a superintendent 6 or 8 weeks into your career. That's really, really tough on us. And it's really tough on the superintendent. Because now our evaluations have teeth in them. You have to send them to the state. If they're minimally effective, you gotta write a corrective action plan and you're responsible for it. And just like any other staff member, if they don't change and come up to the expectations, you may have to separate from them. So it's a real process. And so it can't be 7 individuals, it's a board of education. And so that's what we're looking at. So vision, setting, hiring, evaluate, superintendent, set policy. Budgets come out of vision, they come out of your policy. I bet your policy is about fund balance or expectations of fund balance, right? And who carries out the budget? Superintendent. Who brings a budget to you guys to start chewing on? Superintendent. Our job is to advise so that they know what you expect. And they may come and say, well, we're thinking about doing this. And you're going, no. The community will run us out on a rail if we even think about cutting that program. Or whatever. That's our job as a board, as they're going through the budget process, is to give them those parameters. What are we looking for? What do we want? Not when the budget's ready. Can't be done in June. It starts in January. They're actually starting earlier than that when they're looking at projections and looking at all those things. And so that's where budgeting comes from. Budgeting has about 5% management for us. And that's making sure the line items are balanced and stay underspent. As soon as we spend 101%, we have to adjust the budget. Years ago, when districts got in trouble, it's because we didn't do a budget adjustment. As long as there was money in the bank, we just kept going all year. And in June, we did one massive budget adjustment, corrected everything. As long as we had money and we were in the black, everybody was happy. Well, unfortunately, there was a lot of districts who tried that, but got to June and we're deep in the rut. I mean, we're talking with districts like Saginaw with $22 million in debt after 1 year. And that's a big hole to come out of. And it's one hole you don't even want to get close. A friend of mine was a board member in the district near us. They literally, the superintendent, board president, took their checks. They couldn't mail their checks. They had taken the links, meet with the Department of Treasury, and they told you which checks you could send out. You no longer controlled your district. As far as that, you don't want to even get there, which is why we have policy. That's why we have a vision. That's why we have ethics. So we never get to that point of being over that 5%. when you're going into fiscal, into, response, when you're getting into that point. It's a big issue for us, and so we have to know what that looks like. So everything we do starts with a vision. Everything we do as a board member. Yes, ma'am?
So when do these discussions take place?
Like a session like this?
Work session?
Yep.
Can I ask a question? And kind of the same thing I was gonna ask. So your opinion, right now we have subcommittees, okay? We never, as a board, come together and have really a budget discussion. It's presented to us, but, I mean, I know we're taking it, we approve it. Do you suggest that maybe having two, like a workshop, like kind of like this, and a regular board meeting, as opposed to having subcommittees?
Boards? No, not in lieu of subcommittees. Subcommittees have their work to do. But what I look at and what I recognize in boards that are on the high end, that are highly functioning, we'll do a workshop about quarterly. And that's when you come and have those deeper discussions like this. Because we're not parsing out budgets and all that. It's strictly for us to sit down as a group and talk. What's our vision?
Well,
Are
this
we
is at
close
least
to-
our second, how many we had? We had 2 or 3?
Yep.
We had 3, yeah.
Yep.
So we've had 3, so
And that's
we
good.
heard, so.
And so you're on target for what
Yeah.
you need to do, but you still need your committees, because they're doing the groundwork.
Mhm.
This is an opportunity, and sometimes it may be, like tonight, you have somebody come in, but sometimes it could be somebody in your district coming in and explaining, what is NWA and how do you read that report? Right? You get all these papers and it's like, so you have somebody come in and talk about it, then you as a board talk about it, so that you have a true understanding of what it looks like. So that's really what we're looking like. Does that help?
I just feel like, it's May, middle of May. and
Right.
I mean, what you're saying, I don't feel we've had that kind of
And that's-
conversation.
and that's
Even though
what
we've had
happened with the-
workshops, I don't feel like the things that he's actually saying that we should have discussed.
It doesn't make you bad. What it makes you is, 3 out of 7 of you are brand new. And the others are, 20, 30 years. So it's a new, because for a lot of boards, I was in Huron Valley, they're going through the same thing. They just clicked along, and all of a sudden they got new board members and they're like, hit the rails. And I came in and do a very similar presentation with them, just to get them up to speed. And so what you need to do is start putting these things in place going forward. Have the work discussions as a board. Why did we run? What are we here for? It's not always an easy one, but we want, if I'm a parent coming into your community and I ask you, Renee, what's Fenton all about? What are Fenton schools trying to do? And you give me this, the spiel, we're doing this. And then Matthew gives it to me in a whole different verbiage. We better come to the same point, the bullseye. How we get there is different words. We all talk to different people, we all have different vocabulary, but we all better be coming to the same point. If we have 7 different visions, we all have our own vision, what's her job like? What's your staff's job? You say you're here for the staff. What are you doing to your poor staff? Who do they listen to? Superintendent's spinning her head. She doesn't know who to listen to, because the board didn't set the vision, the board members set the vision. We have to come to consensus. That's the hard part. And it takes work, especially for new board members. It takes work. Have you set mentors up with your new and veteran board members? No. I would suggest, even going forward for right now, pair up a veteran with a new board member and let them be the contact, so they're not at the board meeting and go, what about this? And you're afraid to ask the question because you might look stupid. But I can call you ahead of time and say, well, here's my question. Is it a good question or bad question? That kind of thing. Mentors are a huge advantage. It's like, where do we go for the event?
Yeah.
Every district is different, what the expectations of the board members are. That's where a veteran board member can help a newer board member, so they don't feel like they're being thrown in the corner. It's just an easy tool to have those discussions. Okay? Easy one to do. One team, different responsibilities. Who's our teams? What teams do we have? Or one team? Who's the leadership team? ADU. You're the district leadership team. Not the cabinet, not the principals, not the staff. Everything starts in this room. Every decision you make impacts somebody in your district. When we say different responsibilities, what, we said what our three are, right? What did we say?
Vision, policy, hire and fire the superintendent.
No, don't say that. Hire and evaluate superintendent, please. That's when I have to pull a different presentation out. We have a whole different discussion. Excuse me. We have responsibility for 10,000 foot. Our job's up here. Where do we want it being 5 years as district? Strategic planning. You guys having your strategic discussions. That's what we do. Who's on the ground is your superintendent and their cabinet and their staff. We have to be clear what we want though, so that she can go and carry it out. Because if you're clear, it's wonderful for her, because she can call the cabinet and tomorrow and say, okay, here's what the board expects. Here's what we're focused on, here's what we're gonna work on, this is their edict to me. Now you got everybody on the same page, right? Because if anybody doesn't wanna do it, it makes it easy for your superintendent, because she's gonna call them in the office and have a discussion with them. Hey, this is who we are, this is what we expect, this is what the board expects. Can you get on? Think about hiring. Here's what the board expects, here's what we do in Fenton, here's who Fenton is. When you're talking to that candidate, right up front, can you live with it now? What is your thought? You know, here's what we say our vision is, what does it mean to you? Because if they don't fit into your vision and your expectations, they're not a bad person. They just may not be a good fit for Fenton, and that's okay. You want people who are gonna pick up the ball and run the Fenton way, the Fenton expectation from the board. Board members come and go, but the board doesn't. There's always a board. And so you're just leaving, you're just passing the time to the next person who sits in those chairs. We're just placeholders right now, we're trustees. And there's a reason for that, because we come and go. You'll serve year 1, 2. We have a few people still in their 30th year, I'm like, I don't know why, but there's a few of them out there still. But we have our own responsibility, we have to stay in our lane. What's our job? What's the superintendent's job? What's the cabinet's job? What's the staff's job? What's the children's job? What is the community's job? We all have different jobs. We have different responsibility. Cabinet's responsible for what? Central office is responsible for carrying the message to their departments. They're the mouthpiece for your superintendent. So their job is carried out. They go to the buildings, they talk to the administrators. What's the building level administrator's job?
Get the teachers to do it.
Communicate, share, coach, that we can move forward. What's the student's job? Success. Come to school, be prepared, do your homework, be a good citizen. If you need help, ask for it, but there's a role for them, right? Staff's role is what? To get them there and educate them, connect them. Hence the reason why we have to teach lessons multiple times, because not every child learns the same. We've learned that over the years. You know, it's the 60, you know, it's no more than 55 you sit and get that a lot of us grew up with. You know, you sit there and the teacher just reads to you and tells you, okay, this needs to be in your notes because it'll be on the quiz Friday. You know, history was notorious for that. And it's like, kids don't learn that way. They learn on the electronics. Okay? What's the community's role? What's their responsibility in all this?
Make sure the kids get to school.
Get the kids to school, yep.
Their financial support.
Financial support.
A lot of different forms of support that we expect.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's time, talent, it's financial, it's all those pieces together. So some people may not be able to write a check, but they can come coach a team or run the concession stand. While the football or soccer, whoever's playing, they can help with the concession stand. There's a lot of roles that community can live. But our job is to represent who? Who do we represent? Kids. Who else?
Who do we as a board represent?
Or you, as board members, who do we represent?
The community.
The community. But what's the community? Who's the community? I'm sorry? Fenton. It's not those who voted for you. It's those who didn't necessarily vote. It's the businesses that pay and have no voice in the system. We represent everybody. And so we don't represent those who elected us, we represent everybody. Those who did elect us, as well as those who did, and those who didn't show up. We represent them all. And so when you hear, I always hear, I'm listening to the community. How many registered voters, or how many people live in Fenton, Greater Fenton? Roughly.
12,000.
How many?
Maybe 12,000.
12,000? So my world says if you're listening to your community, that means since the last meeting, you knocked on 12,000 doors. It sounds funny, but that's the only way you can say, I'm listening to the community. You're listening to those who come to you, and that's wonderful, you need that information. But we also have to take into effect that there's this group over here who's not talking to us, and what's the message they're giving us. And we take all that and remember that you were elected to represent all those groups. And the focus has to be ultimately on the children. They're the only one that does not have a bargaining group backing them, right? Or have adults backing them. They're the only group. We're all about staff, but if you have to choose between staff and children, it's a pretty easy decision, right? We're gonna put our foot on the scale over here for the children. Staff have their mechanisms to come and grieve and have those discussions with superintendent through the processes. Community has those ability to come to you as board members, to the board during public comment time, and have those discussions with. But remember that children really don't have a mechanism to communicate with the board. And yet that's our primary responsibility. And so we have to think about when we make decisions, our decisions have to be based on what's best for the schools, the district, and the children. That's who we focus on.
With that oath in mind, that we still gotta follow federal law.
Right. Which is why we gotta be careful about getting into employment issues, because you get into para issues, HIPAA, for students, FERPA, those are all the soups that get us in trouble really, really quick. And so we have to understand where's the run the water line. And so, yeah, we still need to know what's going on with our staff. We still need to, but there's a chain of command. And the hard part is when chain of command's broken and they come right to you, or you go right to them, you basically run over the top of everybody in the chain. And most of us know that there's never fun when your boss calls and says, why is so-and-so not, their computer not working? I go, I don't know, they never told me. Well, that's the same thing. If the building administrator didn't know, the central office didn't know, Heidi didn't know, and ultimately bring it to the board, if it needs to come to the board, that's where the breakdown is. We can't go out there and get information, and they can't come to us. They have to follow the chain of command. How many employees do you have?
As the board?
Mm-hmm.
One.
Thank you. We have one employee, so that's who we talk to. Until Heidi says, yeah, go talk to the business manager, go talk to the curriculum director, because she's gonna build a rapport with her team that when you go and talk to them, they're gonna share with her so she makes sure that if it's a miscommunication or not enough information, she can share it with the rest of the board. Because the rule, if I have a question, you might have thought of it, it never occurred to you, but you're going, wow, that's good information to have. And so that's what we're trying to do. And so that's why we work through our one employee. It's tough, because I wanna go out there and talk to this person or that person. But remember, they're under, anybody who works for us, it's a different threshold. You think about it as a community, those who live in the community and also wear a staff hat, right? Which one trumps the other one? Community or staff?
I don't understand the question.
If they come to you and say, hey, can I talk to you?
If somebody in the community comes to me,
But who's also a staff.
but they're also a staff member, well, then that chain of command would be most important, and they should be talking to their building administrator before.
And we're not telling them, see, we can help the community members at large, parents, community, and get them back in the chain of command. Those kind of, if it's a teacher, did you talk to the teacher? No, that's where you need to start. Or if you talk to the teacher, here's the next step, I engage you. You set the expectation up front before the discussion ever happens. Understand, I'm one board member. I can't fix it, I don't have standing for FERPA, I can't do it. I'll listen to you, I'll help advise for you. Which is why we don't advise staff where to go, because they're under contract. And if we misspeak about it, what, we tell them to go here and they should have gone here, now we're opening ourselves up to a whole lot of mess that we don't need. Because we've advised the staff member wrong against the contract. And none of us know the contract, nor should we. It's not our job. And so that's why we have to follow, they have to always follow their chain of command as an employee of the district, Fenton Schools. And so it's a little different. Just like you can't just be a member, or a community member, can you? Or just a mom and dad,
It's hard.
can you?
We're always board members.
You swore an oath. So no matter what you do, I'm turning my community member hat on. No, I'm putting my board hat on. No, I'm putting the coach hat on. You're always a board member. And understand, when people look at you, what do they think? What do you think they see first? Parent, guardian, community member, board member. What do they see in you as first? Board member. Fun when you go to conferences. If you haven't gone to a conference as a board member, it's a different world. Because they look across you, especially young teachers and don't know the role of the board, think you can fire them if it's really bad. And so they'll start talking to you directly and forget that you're there talking about your son or daughter. And so sometimes you gotta redirect them that, hey, we're here about Scott or Sue or Tom or whoever it is, because they'll get off kilter. We're still a board member, so if they turn around and show you their grade book, the board member hat goes on, right? And says, oh, wait, I can't look at a grade book, right? Can you? No, you should.
Other people's grades, no?
Yeah, that's the problem.
Yeah.
You know your M. I know which kids usually are on either side of my daughter. So when you turn it around and you see all these big red marks, it's like, no, you can't show that stuff to me as a parent. And if they're willing to do it to me as a board member, what are they doing to the parents? Not every parent's gonna be happy, because they may have seen it struggling.
Yeah. Well, teachers are more on electronic grade books now, so that's really not, I mean, that used to be the case where you'd have a paper grade book and you might show them something and they could see other. Now we're like, this is one person's information and we're not sharing.
But a lot of boards will, or a lot of staff will print a piece of paper with where they're at, their notes and all that to give, so the parent has something to take home.
Yeah.
Same thing, you can't leave them laying on the desk. They gotta be in a folder turned over so that no one can see them. We have to understand that, that's our role. If you see that, who do you call? What do you do? If you see something that doesn't feel right, who do we call?
Superintendent.
Exactly. So we don't have to fix it, it's not our job.
Right.
We pick up the phone, if you don't have Heidi as your speed dial 2, you need to fix your phones. Speed dial 1 is your spouse always, the speed dial 2 is Heidi, because that's your first call. Hey, this teacher, I just don't wanna tell you this, they showed me their whole grade book at conferences. And you can hear them, I'm gonna kill somebody, because they did to a board member, how many other complaints is she gonna get? Or he gonna get, superintendent? And so we all have a job. And we can't do the teacher's job, teachers can't do the administrator's job, students can't do the community's job can't do our job. We all have to do the job that we're put in place of. They elected the 7 of you to make those decisions. You get all the information you can get, and then you use your own God-given talent to put all that together and make the best decision for Fenton. And the scary part is it may not be the best decision for you. It may hurt your family. It might be a sport you're cutting and your kids are all up for it, or transportation, or whatever it is. That can't play in the decision. It's what's best for the students and community of Fenton Schools. That's who put us in those chairs. Okay, questions, thoughts, agree, disagree? I'm full of it.
No, I agree with what you're saying. I mean, I've been on here for 6 years, and it's tough being the board member and the parent, because I've had issues, and it's like, you gotta put the parent hat on, follow the chain of command. You know, you gotta go to the teacher, we gotta go to the building, because I can't just speak out to.
Right.
And say, hey, do you know what's going on over at the high school, or this is going on over at this building? Because we're asking our community to follow the chain of command.
Right.
I should do the same thing when it comes to issues like that.
Yes and no. Because again, what do they see when you walk in there? Mom, board member. Does a community member know to call Heidi if they see something, what those laws are? No, we do. We have to. That's our responsibility to know what the law is, what FERPA is and HIPAA.
I guess it depends on the situation.
But,
You know,
but my encouragement to you is always, if you're going in, go talk to the teacher, hey, I got an appointment Friday. I would just shoot an email to Heidi saying, by the way, Scott's in trouble over at the high school, I'm going in to meet the principal. You're not asking her to be involved, you're not asking her to do anything. You're giving her courtesy because, guaranteed, somebody's gonna call her and say, why is so-and-so in my office? Why is so-and-so saying this? What should I do with this board member? And so it's the communication, it's the professionalism to say, hey, I'm not asking you for help, I'm not asking you to intervene, but I'm giving you a heads up that I'm going to see Mrs. McCullough. Because I've seen it where they'll call their building rep, their union rep, to be in that classroom with the teacher when the board member comes in and talk about their kid. They can't be there. They have no standing to be there. FERPA says no, you can't be in the room unless they're the advocate or certain positions, but ultimately, unless you, so I can't go and be your child's advocate as a board member, because I will stand it. And so you gotta remember that, and the less we're involved in that stuff, the better, because those students may someday come before the board for something, and you don't wanna be tainted because you were involved intimately through the process. And so, you're right, it's very hard. Believe, I totally agree with you. And the worst part is, your kids get the raw end of the stick. And call it like it is, they do. Because if they get in trouble, and it's a 1 to 3 day suspension, what are your kids getting? I'm sorry? 3. There's no questions, there's no gray area, whatever the max penalty, your kids are gonna get. Because they're looking for you to get a special privilege that somebody else isn't getting. And so we have to understand that, so we have to help our kids understand that too. It's not fair. They didn't run for the board, we did, but that's reality. And I can tell you, Heidi probably knows where every one of your children is at any time during the day, am I right? No, most superintendents have a kind of a clue where they're at. You're a bigger district, but I'll tell you what, I had 3,000 students and my superintendent knew who every one of our kids was. Through at least what building they're in, so that if something jumped off, they knew, you know, to make sure that all the kids, but it gets back to us. And so we have to be cautious about it.
I think we have a perfect sized district in the fact that we're just big enough that I don't necessarily know where every single relative board member or whatever.
Right.
But we're also small enough in the fact that I do advocate with our staff to let them be parents. To work really hard to let them be parents. If they're coming to you in a parent capacity, they should be able to be parents. I get the
100%.
perception and I
I'm
get
with
the
you.
reality, but we work really hard to give them that luxury of being parents.
Yep.
And not have to always fear that they're coming in as a board member, they're coming in as a parent, because that's a different dynamic and a different conversation.
I totally agree, except that all the expectations and all the training and everything I've seen and done in all out of districts, unfortunately, we can teach that, but as soon as you push back, then they're gonna pull the board member hat out, you know, kind of thing. That's why we have to just understand, go in, hey, I'm a parent, I wanna talk to you, this is not as a board function, I don't want this to become acrimonious. We have to, again, set the expectation right up front. The more we can set it up in any of our communications, here's what I can do, here's what I can't do, here's the expectation, the better the communication's gonna be. But we just have to understand, if you got that kind of communication, that's wonderful. And teach me how to do it so I can get it to other districts, because it's not the norm. It's totally not the norm. Because it's sometimes like this between Board of Education and the school district as a whole. And so that's where the communication, setting vision, setting expectations comes in a long way to help us. Okay, questions? Thoughts? Everybody's awake still? Good. Good so far?
Yep.
So what makes a good board member? Don't go ahead. What makes a good board member? Come on, give me some ideas of what makes a good board member.
I think someone who's passionate about their job.
Okay.
I mean, coming from somebody who graduated from the district and taught in the district and, you know, why I'm here. So I think being passionate and wanting to be involved, I try to go to as many events as I can and.
Make some friends out there and pass it around. You don't know, anytime I work, I bring chocolate. It's a drive, but you know what, about an hour in, you know, just getting juiced up again. So passion is a big one. You have to be passionate all what you're doing. This is what beats you down over time. If you're not passionate. What else is?
Consistency.
Consistency, yeah, honesty, integrity are all big ones, so it's okay. Some of them. You have to know what the vision is and you're clear on what your expectations are. If you haven't had this discussion and the board's not have a clear vision, we have to work well with each other. There's only 7 of you who are crazy enough to put your name on a ballot. Right? Let's call it like it is, you're crazy sometimes. So you're in it together, it's just the 7 of you. There's only 7 people in fact that have the authority, responsibility, expectation, and vision for the people of the community. We kind of like to be fishbowl. And so we have to have each other's back. Student focused, pretty straightforward. Sets and follows the budget. Right? So our job is to make sure we're spending money correctly. And the job is not to say we should buy this clicker over this clicker. That's their job. We look at the bigger picture. We want to make sure we're spending a line on it. That they come to you in April and say, hey, by the way, we're out of paper. You go, really? Man, superintendent, why are they out of paper? You came to us with a budget, so let's cover the whole year. Why didn't they manage it? That's our job. Say, hey, why? Because it's overspending that line item. You know, not saying it's malfeasance, it happens. You know, workers' comp, we budget for 3, we get a 4th one. That budget's shot to half. And so we have to go back and readjust it. So, uses data to drive decisions. When you do your board self-assessment in the next month or a couple months, that's a data set. That's using data to grow as a board. That's what we're asking for. Use data. It can be attendance data, it could be academic data, it could be participation, enrollment. There's a lot of things that we can look at as a board to see where we're going, but you need the data. We engage with the community. And one of our 5 top things from NSBA is community, but it says community leadership. It's no longer called community relations. And it was done purposely, because we're not gonna make everybody happy. No matter how hard we try, there's gonna be somebody on the decision that may not. Our job is to lead them, to explain to them, show them why we're doing it, how we got to the decision we made. That's leadership. That's what they elected you guys to do, to be the leaders. And so that's why we call it community leadership now, instead of community relations. We wanna lead, some of that leading is listening. One of the best skills in communication is to actually listen. And so we want that feedback. We want those opportunities to listen to our community. Not get into a big dialogue, but to actually hear them and take it under advisement as you go further to make your decisions. We advocate for the community, but we have to advocate for everybody. We have to be accountable, collaborative, overcome the setbacks. There's gonna be times when you're not happy. Everybody goes through it. There's gonna be a vote, you're just gonna gnash your teeth and, you know, swallow the bitter pill because it's not fun, but you know it's the right decision. You know it just grates you. That's when we have to come to them and say, okay, I agree. It's consensus. I understand what the board is. I trust our board is making the best decisions for our students. Everybody knows who voted no. They all know where you guys stand. They're pretty smart people. But once the decision's made and it's adopted, it's the decision of the Board of Education, not those who voted for it. And that's a tough one. Because you may just, no. But once the majority rules, makes that decision, it's set in stone. That's the decision of the district, the board. We all have to support it and move forward. Okay? Fosters team development, continual improvement. How many of you have been through any of the CBA 100s? Oh, look at this group. One of the best things you can do. Just to get a foundation. What does it take to run for the board? not much.
Not much.
Few signatures are $100, 18 and live in the community. If you've ever gone through a search, what did it take to get a superintendent? How many alphabet soup things do we need after their name and experiences and training, all this stuff, right? But the people who are making the ultimate vision district, the long-term vision, only have to pay $100. We had boards this year that couldn't get enough people to run. January 1, they had to appoint. It's that bad. And so it's a struggle, because that means somebody who, 2 weeks before puts their name down as a write-in and can spell their name right, can be on your board. And so our job as board members to go out and recruit the next generation of board members. Not to let it just happen and fall in. Our job is to go out and share people what we do, why we do it, how we do it, so that you're grooming the next generation of board. They may not agree with you, but over time, it's our job to make sure we have people who are passionate ultimately for Fenton schools. And that's a tough one. It really is. And then we use the self-assessment. So those are all things for board members to think about. A couple other ones, this one goes a little deeper. Really the fourth point is the one I want to bring up. Respect for the needs and feelings of other people. Right? It's not easy. We all have our battles, we all have frustrations. If you watch people, you can tell what their tell is. They're nonverbal, and it can be disrespectful, and you don't even realize you're doing it. Because you're putting your head down, or you're nodding your head, or your eyes start spinning, right? It's all those kind of things, so that's not respectful. Because you're putting your head down, or you're nodding your head, or your eyes start spinning, right? It's all those kind of things, so that's not respectful. Remember, there's only 7 of you guys in this fishbowl. You have to respect each other. Trust isn't earned at the board level. Trust is innate. When you get a new team, you just reset the trust meter. But it's like a mirror. Fracture the mirror, how easy does it come back together? And does it ever come back to where it was? No. That's the same thing with trust. Ours, trust in school board world is, it's there, it's ours to lose. Our job is to maintain it and grow it. And I'll show you a little bit, I'm not even excited. But trust is a big one. I have to trust you. In January, you should see how many calls I got in November and December for boards, from board presidents and superintendents. I don't trust these new board members, can you come out and work with us? I mean, I was out on like January 3rd in the district. Well, what's the message you're sending? Right off the bat, you don't even know them, they haven't even sat at the board table, and we're already setting up the acrimonious relationship. Okay? We have to trust each other and respect each other, that we're coming ultimately for the good of children. Remember, perception. We may have heard things from the board members or board member candidates that we don't like, but let's remember, that may not always be the truth or what they said. And so again, when they come to the board table, we have to respect them, but it's our job to maintain it. So as soon as we fracture it, any one of us, it's never gonna come back to where it was. The only blessing we have is every time we put a new board member or a new superintendent in place, we start with that, we reset the calibration and start again. And so we have to really respect each other, respect each other's opinions, respect each other's frustrations, their personal life. It's hard when we come across that threshold to say, okay, I'm a board member. We're still moms, we're still dads, we're still community members, we're still spouses. And it's hard, but yet that's what we have to do. We have to be tolerant of each other. I mean, if you have having a really bad day, I'd give your board president a heads up. By the way, it's been one of those days, so, I might be kind of out of it. So it just gives her a heads up so she's not calling you repeatedly, and you want to just be quiet and sit on the side for a couple hours. Or you might get called into work, give her a heads up. Because cell phones at the board table can be a nuisance. If you give them a heads up, say, hey, I'm on call tonight, I might get a call. You step up, take your call, she can share. Yeah, Mike's on call tonight, he expected a call. We got heads up, they're so tall. So they're out of the board meeting. They get the call, they got about an hour to get to the So we have to be respectful of each other, our opinions, our lives, our livelihood. Respect is start on time, end on time. It drives me nuts when you can't start on time, end on time. We should not be having 4 and 5 hour board meetings, unless it's a big issue with a lot of public comment. But the actual business of the board shouldn't take more than 2 hours. If it is, you got too much on your agenda and you need to rethink it. Because what happens at 9 o'clock? After 7:30 starts, now 9:15. What are we all doing?
Start shutting down.
We start shutting down, we look at the clock. I still gotta make lunch, and I still got work to do, I got all this stuff to do. And we only make 2 kinds of decisions that day, bad and worse. And so that's why we wanna maintain, the respect for each other. If we say we start at 6:30 and we end at 8:30, then at 8:30, whether we finish our work or not, we're done, we'll come back, take another swing in. That's just being respectful, especially in workshops. I'm a big one for workshops. Start time, end time. If we don't get everything done, we cycle back again. But that's respectful not only to you, but your families. Because now they know Dad's gonna be home, tonight. I'm at 8:30. They know you're gonna be home pretty quick after that. And that's what we believe, that's why we preach it, that's why we do it in the field. Because that's respect. It's one of those things that people in the community are looking to you guys for. They're looking to you guys for leadership. They're looking to you guys for guidance. How do we run the district? How do we go forward? How do we treat each other? The thing is, you don't believe it, your staff and students are watching you guys. They know how you behave at the board table. And if you're off the wheel, you're going to some school districts and the board members are throwing stuff at them, literally having fights at the table, won't sit next to each other. What's the message you're sending to your whole organization? You want me to be nice as a student, not bullied? You want a teacher to, be respectful? And yet 7 adults who make the decisions for our school district and set the vision and tone can't even sit in a room together without throwing knives at each other, or, literally I've seen it where they've thrown punches. I was worked with a board that these 2 people they would both turn, you would turn that way, you would turn that way at the board table. They wouldn't sit next to each other. It sounds ridiculous, but how crazy it gets. And people are looking to you for leadership. Your community, your staff, your students. You have to toe the line. You have to follow the policy. You have to be better because they're looking for you to lead. We're leaders. We're not managers. We don't make widgets. We set the vision. It's the overarching. It's the staff who does heavy lift. We just have to be crystal clear and won't. Okay? So if you give respect, you get respect, right? We have to remember to respect each other. It's tough. You're gonna get into some tough discussions. You're gonna get into some tough topics that we're not all happy about. But when it's all said and done, you're all here for one reason, to make Fenton the best it can be for all our students, staff, community. And so we gotta give respect to give respect, and vice versa. Okay? 70 to 93% of communication is nonverbal. When I found that stat, I was like, oh nuts. It's like, I had heard it was 60 to 70. Now it's 70 to 93%. So what kind of nonverbals are we talking about? What kind of nonverbals?
There's an endless number of
Well, throw some out.
Just posture,
Yep.
eye contact,
Yep.
like you said about facing or non-facing somebody,
Clicking your pen.
closing your arms
Exactly.
when you don't like something.
That's the message is I'm closed.
Yeah.
I'm out of here. You'd be surprised. I encourage boards to take a meeting and not get into what you said or did. Look for the nonverbals for yourself. To go, oh, I get it. I had a secretary on my board who was a pen clicker, and he drove us nuts till we glued his pens over. He couldn't click them anymore. It ended that whole thing. And he was like, no, it doesn't happen. I go, yeah, watch this. And we had a tape and we showed him. He's like, oh, okay, I have to fix that. And it's those times. Public comment is the worst time for us because we're notorious. We want to take notes. We want to write down what they're saying. Where does your head go when you write? Down. So now I'm the speaker. I'm already nervous to speak before the board. It's not easy to speak in front of a group. And I'm getting heads nodding down. Public comment time is really simple. Put everything down. Sit up straight. Make eye contact with the speaker. Don't be exaggerating, yep, no, you're crazy. Just make the eye contact. Because that'll set a tone that you're actually listening. And then when the board president thanks them for addressing the board and what you're gonna do next, you could write a couple of notes to yourself if you needed to follow up on something or ask questions. You don't need chapter and verse, because you got it right here and right there. Because about 90% of what comes to the board table during public comment is management issues. Who's the manager? Which is why when you go through 101, we tell you that you can't engage. There's two sides to every story and the truth in the middle. That's why we don't engage, because we don't know everybody's, we could affect a staff member.
Do you mean engage in public comment?
It's a one-way comment. It's their opportunity to address the Board of Education. As soon as we say, yep, you're right, you don't know the whole story. I have a board member in Sault Ste. Marie. I was out there, and we went up the night before for the board meeting, and we were in training next day. And a parent got up at public comment at the beginning of the meeting. He said, do you guys think a teacher should be striking a student? I was like, no. Do you know that your gym teacher hit my child at 4 o'clock today? And that quickly, they're now a witness for the parents, and you've given up your role as a board member. We can't jump in because we don't always know the whole story. If it's a staff issue, we won't know until it comes to the board, because there's a process that has to be followed to protect their rights, the union's rights, and the district. We don't want to step in the middle of those. So that's why we don't engage in public comment time. It is frustrating. I know it's frustrating for you guys, but that's why we do it, because there's two sides of the story, truth in the middle.
But they say they're going to.
Well,
Their statement says that they will engage if they find, if it's warranted.
But the problem is, and I'll advise them, is if you engage with one and not the next, you've opened yourself up to another.
Why say it then?
Well, that's why we're addressing it. That's why we're talking to them about best practices.
So the statement doesn't say that we will engage, it says if warranted,
Right.
follow up at or before the next meeting by administration.
That's different. You're not engaging.
Correct.
That's the proper way.
Correct.
Because it should be turned over. Superintendent will contact you, superintendent or your designee will contact you by the end of the next business day to start the discussion. Not to fix it, but at least get more information in the 3 minutes we get here. We don't always need to know what it is. We just need to know that the contact was made and that superintendent or their designees got hold of that community member and they're helping them fix the problem. If it doesn't get fixed, and it can be fixed, you got a bigger problem. Then it means your organization isn't doing their job. Because you can authorize your whole organization to fix something unless it's illegal or immoral. Everybody up to your superintendent's empowered to make that decision and fix it. If it comes back around to the board, it's probably gonna be one of those two issues. Something we can't do by law, or we can't do because it's just not the right thing for everybody in the district. And so that's why we don't engage till we know the whole story. If you have a student hearing and it's out in public, we violate the student's rights. The parents have the right to go close school. And we have to be careful that we don't out that child during our meeting. And it's tough sometimes, because we're passionate. We don't want to put kids out, because that's what we have to do sometimes. The public comment is probably the hardest time for us, because we are community members. A lot of us ran to listen to the community, and yet it's totally different. It's a fishbowl. We live in a fishbowl. They can come to the meeting, watch us do our work. It's a board meeting, not a community meeting, not a staff meeting, not a superintendent's meeting. Once or twice a meeting, they get to come over the top and paw the water during public comment time. If they want all your information, what have they got to do? Run for the board. Exactly. Because you were elected to make the best decision with all the information you get. And it's not always open to everybody, because you're gonna have confidential material. And that gets us in a whole different game. Right? So public comment's a tough one, but that's why we're, superintendent or designee will be in contact by the end of the next business day to start the discussion. So if it's not, and I tell superintendents, even if they come in and praise us, call them and say, hey, thanks, because they still took time out of their day to come over, or one of their designees or Stephanie calling, hey, we really appreciate you coming next time and praising this track team. That was really nice. we wanna make contact with everybody, so it's equal. Problem is board tables, if we engage with one, you've gotta engage with everybody. If you let somebody speak that's not during public comment time, you have to let everybody do it. It's your meeting. It's public, it's a meeting held in the public, not a public meeting, and there's a big difference.
When would you have somebody speaking that's not during the public? I mean, do you
Oh,
have an
you'll have
example
people,
of that?
they'll have people jump up in the middle of the meeting, start yelling at you. If they don't like the decision you're making, they'll,
But you're not talking about a specific type of, you're just talking, okay.
in general. No, yeah, especially having in smaller communities where everybody knows, hey, let's ask Bob what he thinks. Can't do it. They have public comment time, that's the opportunity for Bob to address the board. Because if we let it happen once, and then you have that big decision, COVID, when we had, no matter what anybody did, somebody was upset. But if we had people popping up out of the audience, screaming, yelling, being passionate about where they, we're not gonna get anything. And that's why the public comment, that's the time to address the board, not dialogue with the board. Does that help? Okay. Questions so far, we good? 40 minutes to go. So, I don't want to go negative, let's go this way. What do successful boards as a team do? To set high expectations. We're not just trying to get over the bar, we're trying to leap the big. You set them high, be clear. Clear for the district goals, clear for the superintendent goals, clear for the board goals. Make sure we share the beliefs and values. You have belief statements in your strategic plan, we believe. That should be part of who you are. And I'll encourage you to laminate vision, mission, and beliefs in their goal statements and put it in place. Because that's how we use what we need to make a decision. Mission, vision, goals. That's where we make our decisions from. It doesn't affect one of those three things, what should we do with it? Take it off the agenda. If it doesn't hit vision, mission, or goals, it's not a board responsibility. Dusting the color of your uniforms doesn't fit in your mission, vision, or goals. So whose decision is that to be made? Superintendent. And yet boards wander into that, team names, and they had a board, no, they went through 7 revisions of the color of the beak for their new mascot. Because the board all had their own ideas. And it should have never come to the board. It should have been the superintendent and a key group, key communicators from the staff and community make that decision. We got bigger things, we got a lot of work to do. Coloring a beak on hawk, falcon, wherever what, isn't one of those things. So if it doesn't hit the vision, mission, or goals, it's really not important. It's how we get the 5-minute ankle biting stuff off our table so we can have the time to have the deeper discussions on academics and growth and where we're going long term. I mean, you're gonna have a lot of discussion coming forward with this building plan if you get, approval. There's a lot of work that goes into it, even for the board. It's not your job to pick colors of room, paint, not our job. If you have a building committee or a community group that's their job, or staff, it's not ours. We don't need to, we got enough people who can make that decision. Let them do their work, let your building people, let your project managers, let your superintendent staff do their job, so we stay higher. Again, we look at data driven, make sure we're aligning and sustaining our resources. Okay, again, I don't care how many bus tires we go, but if they over budget, then the question is why are they over budget? What happened? Why did we blow through so many tires this year? Is there a problem? Something's going on here. All new bus drivers who love hitting the curb and blow out tires. Well, okay, we at least now know why it's happening. We have to be united in our leadership. You can't go out in the community and say, yeah, but Mike just never comes and say, I agree with you. That's not what we do. It's like, you gotta
Pick the wrong
understand.
guy for that.
Yeah, well, I figured that's what I would say. But if it happens, it's like, understand Mike's got a job, he's traveling a lot right, he hasn't been here. But understand, I got little kids, so you have little ones, okay? You're probably the primary caregiver. And so times can get tough for you. As a board, we have to say, you're right, but understand this. And, you know, she'd love to be here, but we all have commitments outside of work. And then what you do is, I would come to Mike later and say, by the way, communities mentioned a couple times that you haven't done anything. Just to give you a heads up that even if you can make one thing to put your face out there again, it just makes everybody happy. But that's how we have each other back. It's how we be united. See? It's those simple things, but we agree with something, and it's like that far, and we just, I mean, when it comes time to get consensus or build rapport, get something done, no, you threw me under the bus, why should I listen to you? You know, and it's those silly things that get in our way, and you'd be surprised how many districts go through this. And then ongoing PD, those quarterly discussions. Again, we don't come with much, we come with our passion, we come with who we are, but it doesn't take any degrees or any book smarts or anything like that. So you need PD. So congratulate you for taking 100 courses. Keep going through them, because the more you go, the better you're going to be a board member, because you're going to understand. And it's nice to hear from somebody like me, who's not that skinny in your game. So it's not like, oh, you're just trying to shut me up, Matt. You know, you're telling each other all the time, do this, do that. That's when fractures come, because it's like, you're just trying to shut me up, or you don't like me, or when we come in, or you go to one of our classes, it's people who've been through the world with boards and former superintendents, business managers who come in and talk about finance, and, you know, bring the best people to the table. But they come with a lot of experience that gets you out of that. Well, they told me this and this. We push you to think outside the box in our classes. Okay? Questions? All right, potholes. Number one, we don't have any around here, right? I need to find a picture that has potholes and murals. That's Michigan.
Just drive on some of the streets.
Yeah, exactly. Well, they're by me, I'm at 696 and just east of 75. Believe me, I know, I don't know. Electronic communications, what are we talking about?
Like emails, replying to all, you know, violating the, what's the Open Meetings Act by having multiple people in a communication.
Yep. So what are the actual electronic communications? You said email.
Email.
Social media. Text, they are all problems for us. First off, the rule of thumb, this comes right from the legal concept of history, do not hit reply all. As soon as you do, you're in a slope that you can't recover from of violating the Meetings Act. Because now debate can start to happen if everybody's reply all. So only reply to the sender. Most emails will come from Heidi, and what I tell them to do is create a blind group and send it blind to everybody. So if you do accidentally hit reply all, it's only going back to her. Keeps us out of our own way sometimes, we're our own offenders. Don't send an email, if you're fired up, put it in your draft, don't put a name in it. Put it in the draft and come back a couple hours, you'll be like, I wrote that. You'd be surprised when you calm down how much more proactive you can be. But social media or electronic communications, you have to be careful, because it is voidable. If there's a purpose for it, you know, if, you know, you're watching the national news, unfortunately our former president is getting that because of texts. You know, they're combing through all his texts. Whether you agree or not, it's what happens. And I've seen board members get caught with it, superintendents firing emails back and forth, texts back and forth. Everything you do as a board, because you're an elected official, can be void. That's why we tell you not to use your personal email. Keep them separate, a firewall. Personal, board, use your board. Partly because if it's voided, the district has it on file. They have a record of the email. So it's not you having to go back through 10,000 emails. It's the tech director or somebody in the tech department combing those to get them for the FOIA. It makes it a lot easier for us. But reply all as a no. Communicate with your community. Be careful when you get an email. Don't assume everybody on your board got it. So if you hit a reply to that, and they only get a reply from you, they're gonna go, okay, what happened to the other board members? Some of the board members never saw it, so they didn't even see the original, they didn't see your response. Who's your designated spokesperson as a board? So anytime you get those, you should be sending them to them. Not sure you saw this, but can you respond? On behalf of the Board of Education, thank you for contacting us, and you go into the, but that way you set the expectation that they're getting one email. Because again, we know that if you hit send, you've lost all control. And so we send one email from the board president and or the superintendent, keeps us out of harm's way. Okay? Confidential material? I see any of that? A little bit. Students, staff. What's said in Vegas stays in Vegas. What's said in the confidential room stays there. If you come out and start talking about it, somebody hears you, you violated the sanctity of the Open Meetings Act. You can't go back in for that same topic. So if you needed to have more, you have to, you stepped on somebody's rights when you like it, and you're gonna cause yourself problems. So what's said in there stays in there. Okay? Well, one thing that's not voidable is phone calls or face to face. So when in doubt, pick up the phone and call somebody, or go, hey, can we talk for a few minutes? You know, and meet. And one board member, West Michigan, she goes out to her car. She got 4 little ones, and so she goes out to her car. It's like her safety zone. Kids know if mom's on the phone and in the car, she's doing school board stuff. Now we shouldn't have to worry about little ears or.
The code of silence.
Yeah, exactly. The better you are about it. So just think about where you're standing and talk to someone. Because everybody's worried if you go out in the parking lot after board meeting, everybody's out there talking. They're all thinking that's where the real work's getting done instead. You guys didn't talk like that in the board meeting, but now you're full of talk. They don't know if you're talking about golf tomorrow or whatever. When the meeting's over, go home. If you need to talk to somebody, pick up the phone. When you get home, call them. Say, hey, what about this or whatever. But be very, very careful. We don't want you to run scared of FOIA and OMA, but if you have to ask where the line is, you're too close. I'm not an attorney, Brad's our attorney. My job is telling you, if you're too close, you're over the mark. And I work in the world that you guys live in, with perceptions and all that. So if you have to ask where the line is, you better back up quick, because you're probably right there. Personnel matters we talked about, stay out of them everywhere. Open Meetings Act, I know we sent out a new book, you probably have it in the office. So if you haven't read the new book, I think it's the 11th division, the Open Meetings Act that we put together, we set one at every district, no charge. I would get that book from Heidi.
Everyone has
We got it.
copies.
Okay, oh, they have copies, okay, better yet. Most districts don't, they sit in there and no one reads them, so. Ignorance is not a defense. You can't say I didn't know the law. It's your responsibility. So we did break that Open Meetings Act, and the county prosecutor called and said, what happened? You can say, I didn't know it was wrong. And we will, guess what? Social media. Who has Facebook? It's a great communication tool. Great place to stalk family and friends. But remember, you're a public official now. You're Facebook. You can't block them because it's a public site now. I tell board members all the time, use it to stalk your family and friends. And let the district do all the announcements and, you know, all the good stuff and everything that's going on in your district. Let them do it. Because as soon as you say, hey, football team was great Friday night, the girls swim team's gonna go, well, what about us? We won the championship too. You can't win. It's funny and it sounds great, but you aren't gonna win. Let the district do it. If you got something that you want the district to get out, send it to them. You have a communications director in Nelson. Send it to them, say, hey, you know, have we thought about this, or can we put someone in this? More power to you, but we shouldn't be doing it in our social medias. Remember, there's no filter. Remember my site earlier, perception is reality? Social media really pulls it out of us, because they'll take it, and just like talking to the media, they'll cut up pieces of what you said and then spin it out of control. And it's getting really good if you looked at the stuff they did this year about the ones at the Pentagon. They put a false, AI put a false alert out that there was a major fire at the Pentagon. The stock market actually dropped 200 points in a half hour from it. It was all from artificial intelligence, people playing games. Don't think you're immune to it. And that's why we have to be very, very cautious with Twitter and Instagram and Facebook and all those things. again, you're a public official and you're being looked at differently. The staff and community are looking at you guys for leadership, not to go in and get into a, sparring match with something. You'll never win that. Never. So stay out of it. Because as soon as you put something about what the board's decision might be, you're into the open meetings problem. Even if you put out, come to the board meeting Monday night because we're talking about the building fund. That could be open as an open meeting violation because you're trying to get the community and others to come participate. You're trying to fill the room for your side and the other side. Or you might debate back and forth. We're not talking about it, yeah. But we're only talking about this, and that's not where our work is done. It's here at the board table. And so we have to be very, very cautious. Social media, we actually have a 3-hour class now just on how to handle social media because it's such a big problem. That's probably the number one cause of failure at the board table is social media. You have to really, really think about what you're posting. This one of those cases, less is definitely more. And be very, very cautious because it will hurt everybody. Talk about nonverbal. Appropriate questions at the appropriate time. What am I trying to get you to think about? There's no bad question, but there's some really bad times to ask it. Asking a gotcha question at the board table is a no-no. That's not what we do. We don't throw each other on your bus. We don't play my game, whack-a-mole at the fair. That's what you do when you throw questions out somebody's not prepared for. You're thumping them over the head. Or you fire a question at the speaker and they're not prepared for it. And they get all, and your staff will be the first one. They'll be in the building the next one and go, you know what, the board to me, they embarrassed us last night. And that wasn't your intent. That's how it comes wrong. So if you have a question or something ahead of time inside your agenda, send it to Heidi. Say, hey, this is a question I might have. And she goes, great, ask the question. It's a perfect question. Or ask Emily. Or she might go, you can ask it, and she'll go close ranks with the speaker to make sure that they've put it in their presentation or have that answer for you. Our favorite one was curriculum. When they asked for textbooks, it was like a photocopy. It always had 200 books. No reason or reason. 200 books was the request. That's what they always. So my first question always was, how many kids have signed up? We're not approving 200 books if we have 30 kids. Look at your classroom set, we'll get you a few extra, but the kids are all gonna carry 6 textbooks, kind of thing. It's just the norm. That's why you ask the question. Well, the superintendent got wise to me really quickly and told them whoever was presenting on it on any given night, you better go to your principal at 4 or 5 and get that current count, because the board's gonna ask you. Now they feel like they're Superman because they were ready and they had the answer that you need. Whether they got it ahead of time or got doesn't matter. You got the information you need, and we built the respect. We built the rapport. I talked to Heidi and Emily and Stephanie last week. We did a quick Zoom just to go over what's going on and come up with the topics. Same reading. Give me the lay of the land so I'm not walking into something that's unexpected. She didn't talk about any of you individually. She just talked about they talked about the board in general and some of the topics and things that we need to discuss. And so that's why I asked you at the beginning, what did you guys want to discuss? Because it's not even built in, but I was going to make sure we meet needs. And then remember, we represent everybody. Okay? We talked about that. Real quick, chain of command, great tool. What's not on there? On the right-hand side, in my sample. I should have said who. Who? No, the board.
Over on the right-hand side.
Yeah.
Right.
We're not there because this is a management tool. And are we managers? No. So it goes through the chain of command. This is a great tool to have with you. Remember, but always put them in what we call lowest common denominator. They haven't talked to the teacher, they need to go talk to the teacher. If it, we all get, the parent wants to talk to us about the sport. And what do they want to talk about? Usually about a sport. Playing time. Have you talked to the coach? No, he's gonna bench my kid. Well, that's a problem because he's already benched your kid because he's not getting enough playing time. So that's our limit. Did you go to the parents' meeting? Nope. Go to the athletic director? Nope. Go to the principal? Nope. Did you go to central office? Nope. Did you go to the superintendent? Nope. Well, none of us, superintendent on down, don't make the decisions on the field. Coaches do. So you need to go back to the coach and have the discussion. But as soon as you do that, your staff's gonna really love you because they're not gonna get headhunted by people running right to the board on staff. Because they know your expectation is you're gonna put them right back in the chain of command. And for the new board members, this is the best tool you can have. Put them back in the chain of command, remind them, set the expectation up front. I'll help you get to the right person, but I can't help you beyond that. It's not my role. I don't have that responsibility. I'm 1 of 7. We only have a responsibility at the board table. So this is great tool. I have a district on the west side of Michigan, has a trifold business card, and this is on the inside of their business card. On the back side is their strategic plan, mission, vision, and goals. And then the top piece is just their contact information. But they took it to heart, and that saved them so much because as they're talking, they can hand it right to their community member and say, have you talked to, and they don't have to remember or write it down real quick. You're giving them this. Those are the simple things. This is rule of 7, tell them 7 times 7 different ways. So it needs to be in the buildings, it needs to be on the Friday announcements, it's gotta be on the website, it's gotta be in the Friday folders.
They made out business cards for us that has chain of command stuff on it.
Perfect. No, you guys don't, you need to steal one of them.
Well,
Yeah, definitely. Every time I can steal and share them with other districts, examples are great. The more who do this, the better it is. It's easier for you guys, it's easier for the community, because now we're listening instead of trying to get out of ourselves. And you say, hey, I can listen to you and I can help you. Now they know they're not jumping in, you're listening. Because they know you're not gonna fix it. You don't have that ability. Great tool, use it every time you can get it. Just some trust issues real quick. Direct your questions appropriately. Who should they go to? If you're a board member, you have a question, who are the 2 people you should go to?
board president, superintendent.
Hosts. You elected Emily to be your leader. That's part of being a board president. They have to be there. When in doubt, call one of them. If you can't get hold of them, call your mentor, if you have a mentor. Or call somebody else on the board, hey, what about this? Or, have you ever been in this situation before? Work as a team. If you have information, don't hold it to the last second, share it with the team. If you know something, you know, from your own personal world, hey, I got this, have we thought about this? Send it to Emily so it can be to the committee that's working on it. It's nothing worse to say, yeah, you come to the meeting, we made a decision, but we're gonna think about this, and no, but it's a pretty good idea, but we already voted on it. We have to direct the questions appropriate in a timely fashion. Working as a team. Again, 7 of you. You don't have to like each other. You don't have to break bread, even though breaking bread's a good thing, because they will come. As we say in church. Break bread, they will come. But once you cross that threshold, there's 7 equal people. You were all elected as trustees. The community didn't name Pam the treasurer or elect Emily the president. You guys did. So effectively, we're all trustees. We're all equal. Emily does not have any more voting power than anybody else. Her vote is the same as everybody else. Working as a team means everybody's voice. It's hard to be board president because they want to hear everybody else's voice. And they're usually last to speak or try to get everybody involved. But that's respect, letting everybody speak, but listening to each other. Most communication is listening, not speaking. And so we gotta really be conscious of even to each other, just like public contact. Sit up straight, make eye contact. You may not agree with them, but listen to them. Because our job is not to come in prejudged on a board night. I'm gonna vote yes or vote no. Our job is I'm leaning no, leaning yes, but you're leaving the conversation open until you have the dialogue to see if somebody says something that changes your mind. Too many times board members, no surprise rule, so I'm gonna tell you Friday I'm voting no. There's no motion on the table, there's no second, we haven't called discussion yet. So how do you say you're voting no? It can change between Friday and Monday. I'm leaning towards that, but you leave the door open for the discussion to see if somebody else. Know the message. What's your message right now for the community? What's your message that you're trying to get out? Does it work?
Right now, we want to change.
Okay.
But we wanna be better.
Okay. So we need to make sure everybody's on that page. So again, you're taking the message out as a team, that we want change. Not that what's going on is bad or wrong. We're here, we just wanna continue to improve. If you say everything's bad or wrong, you're gonna get run out of town because that's all your staff's gonna go, you call me back. And they all work hard, no matter what position, they're all critical for things. If that's what the message is, you all have to be on the same page for the message. Can't have something, yeah, we're for change now, we're for status quo. Right? Connect with your community and leadership. Talk to your community, listen to your community, but listen to the ones who aren't speaking too. There's a big group that aren't speaking. And it's not that they're bad or wrong, or people coming to you are bad or wrong. If it's passionate, you're gonna come. If it doesn't affect you directly, it's a little harder for you to get up and go to a board meeting if it doesn't affect you directly. Some passion you have. And that passion's wonderful. We want that. But you have to listen to everybody. So the biggest thing on trust is you have to build it. I said some trust real quick, communication, we talked about. You know, this is the first thing. Shared understanding, what's the role, what do we do, they'll agree what that looks like. Shared expectations, say what we're gonna do and do what we say. If they know that you're gonna use the chain of command as a board, they're gonna know the expectation, and it's a shared expectation from the whole board. Shared commitment is just that, you're committed to the whole. How am I committed, am I in it 100%? And then shared efforts is, you know, I have 10 hours, maybe I'm retired, I have 10 hours a week, and Mike's going nuts at work, and he's got 2 hours. So if he gives his 2 hours, I give 2 hours, and we do a shared effort. If I had 10 hours, I could have given. I'm only using 20% of my time, and he uses 100% of his time. What we're saying is, think about when, pick and choose where your effort is. You know, can't be at every event, can't be at every sporting event, can't be at every drama, band concert. You have to pick and choose. And sometimes as a board, you gotta divide those up because they wanna see what we need to be out there. Again, it's shared up. Okay? If you look at it, we kinda look at it as a tire. Any one of those could be a nail. It goes flat. And so it's hard, it takes every day to maintain. Okay? So what board is not? You can't make promises as an individual. We have no authority. Sure, I'll get you a new football field. Yeah, no, not gonna happen. We can't, we have no problem. Yeah, I'll take it to the board and see if they'll take it up. That's not how it goes. There's a process to put stuff on the agenda. Involving yourself in the minutia. I don't care what pens they buy, as long as there's pens available for our kids and pencils or paper. How they get it here, who they buy it from, whether it's central warehouse or Berkshire to the bill. Not our problem, that's not minutia, it's their problem. Now, if she comes to you and says, hey, do you have any thoughts about this? I know you work in this industry, you have, by all means. She's opened the door, go for it. She's asked you for input, by all means, but we don't go in and say, have you thought about this? Or do it this way. Understand, if we say do it this way, who's responsible for the outcome now? The board or the superintendent? Who?
The board.
Board. I don't know about you, but I never want to be in that position, because I'm not an educator, right? We want to say what we want, how we get there, that's her job. Here's what we want, what are you gonna do to get us there? And then she comes back with a plan of action, and then we evaluate. It's a circular session. As soon as we say, Madam Superintendent, you gotta do it this way, we've cut her out, and now we're responsible for the outcome. So we gotta be careful. Now, she calls you in the office and say, hey, man, what are your thoughts about this? And you say, have we thought about this or that? That's all, by all means, if she's opened the door. But until that time, management type stuff is hers. Don't make decisions based on preconceived ideas. It's hard for new board members because you're hearing all this stuff and not being on the board very long, and you don't know the history sometimes, and so you're coming in with a preconceived, well, I heard this from somebody, and this from, and you gotta put them all out right now and go with the data that's in front of you. And that's why the first few months for you is hard, because you're trying to swallow as much data as you can get, historical and otherwise. So, no, don't use preconceived ideas. Don't have a hidden agenda. board services not having a hidden agenda. I ran because I want wrestling mats. There's a district not far from here that we 2 board members run for that specific reason. They want a new mats for wrestling program. So they ran for the board. So after that discussion got tabled, now what are you gonna do? You're a one-trick pony, you're done, you're out of here, thanks, next. Don't have a hidden agenda. If you truly are here to make change, have that discussion with the team. What has changed to you? Have that discussion. It's changed to me, it changed to you, it changed to Emily. It may not be the same. But once we have a discussion, we can come to that commonality, come to consensus, what does it mean? But no hidden agendas. Thinking you have to be an instant expert. Remember, I've been doing this 18 years now. And I still learn every time I go out. Business cards, no. Another district, learn something. You will never know everything about school service. I don't know everything. The key is you need to know who to go to get the information. Keep my business card. You have a question, I may not be the right person to answer, but I'll get you the right person. But at least you've met me and seen me and had my card. That's what we're there for. If it's legal, I'm gonna send you to Brad. If it's community relations, I'll send you to that. Well, if it's something on us or something I can help you with, I'm not gonna tell you how to do it. I'm gonna ask you, what are you thinking? What have you done? What are your thoughts going forward? And I'll help coach you through it. I'm gonna say, do this or do that. Not my job. You're the board member. I'm just here to advise you. So you won't get me telling you this is how I do step by step. It's your decision. I'm just gonna get you to think about different things. But you don't have to be an instant expert. Even tonight, we gave you a lot of information. You won't remember it all. But that's what the team is. Strength is if each of us bring pieces of memory back from this session, then we're gonna be stronger forward. Don't become a complaint department. Biggest thing, you can't be a complaint department. And 2 sides of the story, truth in the middle. It's kind of, I call it McDonald's theory. You go to McDonald's, you want a burger with no ketchup, but it comes out with ketchup. Who do we ask for? Who's the first person you ask for? Manager. We create that syndrome. We're doing the same thing in board. If we go and try to be the complaint department, or the communication team, or that's what ends up happening, and our staff lose out the opportunity to have those dialogues instead of us having. So don't become the complaint department, right? And most of what comes to you is gonna be communication. What's my eyes and fingers here telling you?
Don't hit send.
Huh?
Don't hit send.
Yeah. They're not googly eyes. Eyes in, fingers out. Eyes in, fingers out. We want you to be observant. We want you to have those communications. But fingers in is when you're getting into making the bread kind of thing. We don't want you doing that. So eyes in, fingers out. Keeps us all in better position. So, you guys have these here. One more slide real quick. Killer bees and critical cities. Which side do we tend to live on? Which side's easier for us? Bees. Sure. Buses, everybody has a car, or most people have a car, they understand transportation. Buildings, and most of us live somewhere. Books, budgets, ball games, bonds. A lot of easy areas, right? But that's not where we need to be. We need to be on this side, building the connections with our superintendent, our staff, our community. Communication, we've talked about that a lot tonight. You've got to continue to build that communication. Collaboration, you're an 8-member leadership team. You've got to lead by example. Community building, how do we get information out to them? How do we not teach them, but educate them on what we do? Because a lot of community members don't even know, they elected you, but they don't really know what our job is. And so we have to do a better job of getting that out. What do we do, what can we do, what can't we do, those kind of things. Child advocacy, we've talked a lot about that. And then curriculum choices. What are the long-term, not this class over this class, but what do you want that graduate to look like? Farmington just built their profile of a graduate. And it tells everything from pre-K, up to 12th grade, the things they want to see and do, have that student come out with that knowledge. So it's their driving force, this is what they do. And so it makes a lot of difference. So we need to get out of the left and get to the right. The left is more management, it's just we understand it, so comfort zone, we gotta get to the work. It's a little harder, but it's really our goal. So questions? Comments, thoughts, ideas? What's your one takeaway, Renee? Oh, I'm mean.
There's a lot to digest.
Yes, there is.
Yeah.
One takeaway?
Yeah, what's one takeaway? Not necessarily the biggest, just one takeaway.
I'm just sitting here tonight thinking we haven't worked as a team.
You what?
I'm sitting here tonight thinking we have not worked as a team and we need to get there.
Okay. That's a takeaway.
I don't know how.
It takes time. The first step is identifying the need and identifying how we're gonna go about improving. And so that's good. Matthew, what's your takeaway?
Yeah, I think, I'm, believe it or not, I'm actually quite critical of myself in a lot of ways, in business and, as a parent as well. And I've been really toiling about a lot of things going on in the district. And I think this just really offers a lot of insight as to where, and I don't wanna use this word negatively, that deficiencies exist, but an opportunity to fix them and build on them and go forward.
Good. Good. Dave, what's your takeaway?
How focused we should be on the vision
Okay.
and setting that and communicating it.
Good. And
Yeah, kind of to piggyback off of Renee and Dana, like not only setting the vision for the district, but I liked the idea, I think like with a new superintendent coming in and new board members, we just kind of hit the ground running, so not having that time to sit down as the 7 of us, like we've had some workshops, but to really hone in on that vision piece or what we want out of the teamwork, to form that consensus.
Pam?
I have to agree with, what they said. I think that, since January 1st, when we had the new members come on, we have not sat down as a board to even put a foot down. We've had some stuff that has happened in our community that we have not had time to, work as a team. And to get there, we have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of work to do to make sure that, again, we may not all agree on what the outcome is, but we have to respect each other and, try to, we have to come together.
We can agree to disagree, we just can't be disagreeable. We have to be open to the conversation, right?
Yeah, and as one of the newer board members, I've just been trying to do as much as I can on my own, like, self-educating and
Right.
taking the CBA classes
Yeah.
and stuff. And I would like to do more teamwork type things.
It'll help you on, Ashley.
Yeah, me too. I don't think when we first started, we ever sat down and, like, if you ask me what the vision of the board is, I can read the one on paper, but when's the last time that was even looked at? I don't know, but I think that if we can communicate better together in more workshops, it would be beneficial.
And the vision usually comes out of strategic planning. We're not recreating the vision. What does it mean to us? When you start breaking down words in that vision, it really changes the tenor. You guys have to do that. So
Yeah, and we all want to help the students, but I think we probably have different perspectives on what that looks like, and I don't think any of us have really ever sat down and talked about it, at least not the new.
Good.
I think part of plays into that too is like the timing of the administration change, but also the strategic plan was formed before you guys came on the board. And so the opportunity to sit down and kind of have that level of conversation with new
So
board members.
have you had a conversation showing the strategic plan and
Yes,
talking
but
about how it got built?
Yeah, absolutely, but I'm just saying that
I figured.
dissecting that actual vision of what does that vision
Yes.
mean to you,
Yeah,
that's
teach
the
us.
specific,
And
yeah.
getting back to that, not being distracted by other things.
You said,
Go ahead. No.
you said something though in the beginning and it's just like hanging here in my thoughts.
Oh, no.
I know. That it's really hard once it's broken. So I'm kind of stuck there.
The only nice part is you guys didn't know any better up to tonight. so you've got a fresh start. It's really how do you go forward from here? And so.
That's the important
That's
thing.
hard one. And we have to look at ourselves first before we can start pointing fingers at other board members. Am I doing everything I can to make this a better board? And if not, you gotta ask questions, what am I gonna do? How do I make myself a better board member to make my team better? Heidi, what was your takeaway?
I think, you know, just, Stephanie and I worked really hard on our onboarding for the 3 new board members, and we missed the boat. Like, I was thinking the whole time, oh, we should have, this is what we should have, you know, instead of onboarding them so hard, like we did, it should have been more of this. It really should have been. And we brought in somebody in our first kind of workshop. It wasn't this. And it just, it really hit home that I think everybody benefited from tonight. I think the other thing that hit home is just the whole idea on the communication piece and really letting our community know how our board operates. Cause I think there's a misconception about what subcommittees do and what whole board meetings do. So I think having those conversations about, you know, this is what a subcommittee never makes a decision. You know, a subcommittee is just the conversation about it. So I don't think it's, and I think that's hard sometimes because I think you get so in the moment of doing the work that you forget to explain what that work looks like. You know what I mean? I mean, for people who've been on the board, for longer than just me as a superintendent, we've had more subcommittee meetings this year, more workshops.
Trying to get everybody
more,
up to speed, yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, we really have worked very hard, but we haven't shown the community that hard work. And so I think that's where some of the misconception comes in with that, in that they don't know how, you know, what the subcommittees do and then what the whole board, how the process works. And I think that communication will go a long way.
Yeah, I think that sometimes when we do have community members that are in the audience, and we are just, oh, motion, I approve it, I bet, 7 no, you know, we move on, we have to, I guess, all of us be more, diligent in having a little bit more discussion and not just 7-0, cause
explaining why you got to where you're at.
right,
What was the
community, I
process?
mean, our subcommittee really went into, like in the budget, we really went into detail. They get kind of their, the board, you know, you get the board notes and stuff like that, but we, you know, it's kind of like, oh, yeah, 7-0, you know, and it's kind of like.
And they're looking like, did you do anything?
Exactly,
Or did you just
exactly.
Doink.
So I think that's, us as a board, we have to be more mindful to our, audience that, and the community that, yeah, we do take a lot of this serious, it's just a lot of it is the backside of things that they don't see. But no, I think that we need to do that.
I will say, as a new board member, I shared some of the concerns with the community. I know that we technically didn't violate the open meetings with this announcement, but I didn't like how this announcement was presented on Sunday afternoon either. And I don't think that was at all intentional, because I know in our last policy committee meeting, we talked about the difficulties of getting an agenda posted in a timely manner and having all the board members have an opportunity to chime in. But the short version of what I'm trying to say is I think we as a board do have a lot to work on as far as transparency. It's just making sure that we're not overwhelming our staff that post it to, and making sure that we can do it in an effective way where we can come to some sort of consensus, whether that's in another workshop or otherwise, of how do we get that information out better and more efficiently. So, I don't know what the solution is, and I don't think we need to dive into it tonight, but I think that was one of my takeaways too, of like, maybe we're not being as transparent as we could be. And I don't think it's been intentional, but I hear that concern.
Are you talking about posting the meetings?
Just in general, just getting our message out there.
Which is what I think all year we say,
yeah.
we just aren't doing it. We're not doing a good job of it.
Yeah.
It's just kind of helter-skelter, somebody gets out, some doesn't.
And Heidi mentioned the onboarding at the beginning of the year when we came on, and I really thought it was a lot of good information. She said that they missed the
mark or whatever, but, I mean, I thought there was a lot of good information and, presented, especially for somebody that wasn't in the district, you know. A lot of the stuff, being a teacher, I already knew, but, you know, there's still a lot of stuff that I don't know, so, so they did give us a lot of good information. There's just so much to know and, you know, some other important things
What
that,
you prioritize.
yeah.
And that's, so the three new board members who went through that, I highly encourage you to give some feedback to Heidi and Emily, so that they can go back and kind of critique it and say, okay, what can we do better? You went through it from that side of the table, and they brought it to you, so if you're collaborating, the next person who comes in and has to go through it are gonna get a better go than this one. This could come. Real quick, board self-assessment, I know you talked about doing it, it's a wonderful opportunity to look at where you're at as a board, and to set goals from. We actually can build goals out of it. It's a really simple process with us. You go on our website, a couple weeks out, you put your district name in, you don't put your name in, just the district, and you answer all the questions. Once all 7 of you are done, they'll dump the report usually to me or whatever. They will give it back to you, full color, aggregate, and then that's a great tool, because it's a data set, so you guys, and you're looking at what, as a board as a whole, not any individual. You're only as good as your weakest team member on whatever that is. But then, what that could lead into, and I do a lot of boards, if I was to come out, we would go through the self-assessment, look at goal setting for the room, but also look at kind of the vision and some of these other things, because now you can look at and see the shortfalls that you guys see, and we can tie that up right there, not having another night, you can all be done in one section, in this work session. It was 3 hours for a retreat, which is a full day, that's up to you guys. But there are opportunities out there. I'm happy to come out and do it, or one of our other people. BSA, I highly encourage, we did it. We've been doing it since the mid-90s in my home district where I was. It's just, we know it gets done every year, it's just what we did. And it wasn't about the scores, it's conversation. It forced you to have a conversation, look at true, doesn't matter who scored it what. What is it telling us and how do we fix it? Okay? Now, you heard me say this all night, 2 sides to every story, truth and myth. So here's my take for it. My oldest, who's 34, when she was 3, she used to go to her friend's house for babysitting. And the rule was, we believe only 5% of what she shared from their house, if you only believe 5% of what she tells you about our house. So my wife picks her up one day. Honey, what'd you have for lunch? Bread and water. This man, bread and water, that's all she gave me. She was that mean to you? No, bread and water. So after the kids go to bed, my wife calls her friend and says, okay, I gotta know. Bethany's saying you gave them bread and water. Now my friend's cracking up. She's rolling. Because she's like, she didn't lie. They had peanut butter and jelly and Kool-Aid. So she had bread and water. They just forgot to tell you that there was some flavorings and some other things in there. That's what we get at public commentary. You get the bread and water and not always the peanut butter and jelly Kool-Aid. And so that's what we're trying to make you think about is 2 sides of every story, truth somewhere, and continue. Public comment, community comment, communication between each other. That's why we have to build communication as a team, so that we can have that respect and trust for each other, that we don't get the red water, but we get the fish water. Okay? Any other questions for me? You have my business card. The last slide also has all my contact information. Again, feel free to reach out. A lot of information into our window, a little over 2 hours. You know, call me, email me. Rule of thumb, if you email me, you gotta put the district name in the subject line, otherwise it won't get read. I get so much garbage. If you call me, I don't pick it up, it's usually because I'm in the owner's office. So just leave me a message, I'll call you right back. It's more time sensitive. Okay? Thanks again for the opportunity. Thanks for your participation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
I wish
you.
you guys best of luck.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. Thank you. Hopefully give you guys some more information too.
Yeah, for sure. Yep.
Good. again, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you,
We'll see
Scott.
you soon. Nice to meet you guys. Thanks. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. All right. We have a couple announcements before we adjourn. The new subcommittee is scheduled to meet Wednesday, May 24th. Teaching and Learning Subcommittee, Thursday, May 25th. Graduation is also Thursday. Thursday's a busy day. The 25th and
Outside.
6:10.
Yep,
Meet
6:10.
at 6:10 if you're gonna help hand out diplomas.
Yep.
And outside.
Outside, we're
As soon
outside.
as May. It's beautiful. Finance will meet Thursday, June 1st, and then our next regular scheduled board meeting is Monday, June 5th. Anything else for the good of the group?
Yes, I hope so. In light of some of the stuff that's come up tonight, what we just heard from Scott, which I felt was really, really well presented and really enlightening from a reflection standpoint, you know, and I'm only speaking on behalf of myself. Truthfully, I'm not really comfortable at this point going forward with our subcommittee meeting that we've got set and where we're at with it. Some of the points that were brought up, both by, well, mostly things that I heard through public comment, which I don't disagree with necessarily. That we've got a situation where we've got a couple people on the committee that voted against getting rid of the badges. We've got one that voted for, just little things like that. And then I don't want to talk about all the negative. I want to talk about how we can move forward with it too. And some of the things that were brought up by people that are out there specifically are the use of data to drive the decisions. And coincidentally, we're sitting here back and forth, and it's in Scott's presentation, the use of data to drive decisions, and it's followed up with engages with the community. And I'm not trying to prolong this and just draw this on, because I think we've got a number of really important things that we should be able to have dialogue about and talk about it. But I don't wanna take 2 steps forward and then have to continuously take 1 back. And I wanna make sure that everybody that's on board is on board, and we are together as a group moving forward, and we can then bring forth the people that we wanna bring or need to get into the group. And we don't even know how that looks yet at this point. And how we can move forward with the changes that we talked about here tonight, and how we can do that from a communication standpoint, a trust standpoint, a transparency standpoint, and everything else. And I think one of the things specifically, because my wife always says, give me a specific when she and I get into an argument. And one of those things specifically is surveying people. And the topics that we want to talk about, the topics that we need to talk about, and how we go about doing that. So again, I apologize, I'm not trying to prolong this whole thing or pump the brakes on it intentionally for any other reason other than I want to do it right. And I hope the other people involved do as well. So I personally, as a chair, just one second, as a chair, I don't know if I need to make a motion for it or just how I go about doing that. I don't feel comfortable right at this exact moment. I think the intent is there, and everybody has the best interest of the kids in the school district at heart, and I want to just make sure that we do it the right way. Ashley.
I was gonna say, I agree, and I was gonna offer maybe a suggestion of maybe, I feel like the committee, when we voted, we were trying to come up with a solution on the spot. I think it was well intentioned, but I don't have a clear vision of what that committee's for right now. I know what our motion language said, but it was basically what we all ran for, the safety of all students. So I wonder and I don't know if we just postpone until we have to take official action at a board meeting or what, but what if we scheduled some sort of work time where we could have like a committee of the whole or a workshop of what are we even trying to accomplish with this committee? Because I'm not really clear on what that is personally, and I don't want that committee to cause more problems amongst our board or our community. And I wanna work towards solutions, but I don't know that 3-person committee at this moment without any direction. I agree with you, I'm trying to agree with you, I'm taking too many words to agree with you.
I just, you know, the word was used, I wrote it down, I think 3 different people used it today in their public comments, is fairness. And, I think that's important. And, you know, it really, it bothers me, the fact that we're starting a committee that's supposed to be able to do these things that we hope we can get done, but we're already doing it. Again, I don't know if there's any way around it, because we're doing it with 2 that voted one way and 1 that voted another. And it just inherently, right at the beginning, it just starts out bad. I feel like that personally. So I'm not saying I wanna back away from any responsibility. I'm willing to do whatever it takes. I have the autonomy to be able to do that in my time during the day. I need some direction, and I need some, but I don't wanna put it on the back burner either. I think there's a lot of issues that need to be talked about, and we need to come up with some answers, and we need to communicate that effectively out there to the public and our staff, and come to some resolution on some of these things, and hopefully we can start the process, and I hate to use this terminology, but the healing process of moving forward and fixing that mirror that we talked about in his presentation. So.
Can I say something? I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I agree with you, Matt. I just think that, last meeting, it was so quick, so fast, that we didn't have time to even talk about what we're gonna do. And I agree with you 100%. What if your committee met and created survey questions? And then we have Heidi put together a survey and send it out. And then either the survey comes back to you guys as a committee just to go over and comes straight back to the board. But I think the questions have to be very targeted. I think that they have to, you know, flat out ask the community, are you in favor, are you not in favor? If you, you know, is something, do you have, they have to be simple, you know, questions, but we need to know, you know what I'm saying, direct questions, and then start something, do it like that, to have that survey go out first. Just it's just.
The survey part,
something.
I really wanna use data, but I wanna make sure that we're using good data and making sure that if we do a survey, there's a mechanism to know who is actually responding. Because I could see there being problems with that. I just logistically, I don't personally know, that's the minutia, I don't know how to run a survey. So I do think though that committee, whenever it meets, could talk about, do we wanna do some sort of data collection? But I just wanna make sure we're really clear on who are we surveying and for what purpose.
In lieu of the, again, to keep things moving forward, but trying to, do it, the right way, because there might be some conflicts with where we're already at with our initial meeting, as far as the timing goes and scheduling and who can be there and who can't be there. I'm willing to just literally reach out to the 2 others that are in there and start the verbal process on a one-on-one in there until we can at least start finding out what's gonna work and what's not gonna work from that standpoint. I don't know if I'm making sense on that, but I'm just, I don't want to get into, I also don't want to get into an initial meeting that just turns into a two sides type of thing. We've got to have some resolution to the direction that we're going, and I hope that I'm clear enough to say that I'm willing to talk to you 2 individually, you individually find out what we need to do, because I agree, I would like to make sure that whatever we do, that it, you know, the sanctity of it is ensured from a data standpoint. But I think it's really important that we get feedback from a lot of folks.
Yeah, I do too, and I'm still not certain I understand the purpose of the committee, because we have already also voted on one of the issues. So I guess my understanding of the committee is that I was going based on what was presented to us, and it was about overall concerns and safety and well-being of the students. So I don't have a clear vision of what this committee is trying to accomplish, I guess. So maybe that's where we start the conversation. But I do agree we should get down.
Yeah, I mean, just from the standpoint of that one particular topic, we can go into the depths of where I am on that, but that's something that I'm willing, and I've already had some conversations with both of you about it, but I'd like to maybe go a little bit deeper on that, because it's gonna be one of the biggest subjects that we talk about amongst others that are out there, so.
I feel like tonight, I actually circled the same thing and actually showed you during the presentation that I thought it was interesting what makes a good board member says use data to drive decisions. And right under that, engages with community and advocates for the community. And then on another slide, we represent everyone in the community. I feel like we have lacked transparency. That's been a problem I've had since like February. So I will tell you that I do feel uncomfortable in this committee, because it's already set up 2-1. I do feel like what we heard tonight is something that we all need to take to heart and move forward the best we can, because if we don't fix this here, I think I've said this before, we can't fix that out there. And I feel responsible to some degree. The 7 of us have allowed this to happen, and it's hurt our community. People said tonight, you know, when, I can't remember the woman's name, she got up 3 times, I should remember it. Stephanie?
Yes.
I mean, I like want to go look at the mission statement. Was what she said accurate? That we're not really going to hear what, I mean, so many people have spoke at that podium. Are we listening? Have we talked about it? And I'm not sure what this committee is going to do. I shared that with you. But tonight, when he said that, it was like a bell went off in my head. Like, this is a huge, I don't think we have to do this every time. You know, like what color pencils the kids have, but this is not your normal situation. And I honestly ask myself every day, and I've had people ask me, did you know what you were getting into? No. I sat in this very seat in January and someone came to that podium, and since then I feel like I've been on some wild ride. I did not think that that's what this meant, being on this board. So I hope I'm reading the situation correctly. I don't think this is normal, but I feel like we're in uncharted waters, and we've got to figure out how to heal. I actually like that word, because I do feel like it needs to heal. And perhaps the 7 of us are the start of that. And I'm more than willing. I'm not going to sit here and not look at myself. But I am concerned about the committee. I've been concerned about it. And some other things have happened since then. I just don't want it to be a waste of time for something that we really seriously need to look at and fix. And I really am like stuck on, this is way different than most decisions that probably present themselves to the 7 people on a board. And I don't know how we got here, but where we are is someplace we need to navigate away from and fix. And if it means that we need to be more transparent and get feedback from all parties, then I think that's where we need to go.
So, appreciate both of you, and it's very similar and yet different in certain areas, as well as how you present things but, I think that just is solidifying that I'm just not, we can keep the committee intact, but I think we've gotta find a way to be more effective at it, and, yeah.
Perhaps we could all come up with a series of questions and then send them to you.
Yeah.
And
I think
Well,
I
that would
wanna
be
know
nice.
the purpose of the survey, is it specifically regarding the badge or something else? Because
I
the
would think
thing
it'd be all
about,
things.
the thing about data is it's important and I wanna look at it, but I wanna know, again, questions are good, but I wanna know who are we serving? Are we putting it out, like,
I would, I wouldn't feel comfortable unless it was, anybody and everybody that had a vested interest of voting, say so, in the Fenton School District.
yeah, I don't know, okay, makes sense.
maybe it could be just something as simple, then it's not just like a pick and answer, but just asking the question, what do you feel would bring the community back together again? I can't imagine how we'd have to go through that data, it'd be easier to like pick A or B, but how do you,
You're gonna have a huge
how do
long
you
list, you're gonna have
understand?
a big long list of, all
Yeah,
kinds of
I don't know.
responses.
But that's just
Well,
something.
you also have to give them the opportunity to, if they want to put a response in, to write something. But I would try and limit it to options.
Maybe
Because,
all of us should send our ideas and not just the three. We all are part of 7 people that have to,
Very good.
Oh,
we are
absolutely.
in this where we are, and I don't think
Yeah.
it should just be the 3 of us to figure out.
No,
Oh,
I
wait,
agree. I like that
Yeah.
idea, cause my initial thought was, whatever questions you come up with, should be, like, we should all decide as a board, but, I mean, I think that's a good idea to all brainstorm questions. It shouldn't just be on the 3 of you, we all are part of the community.
Right.
So to use Matt's words, we all are part of the healing of moving forward to do what's best for kids. So,
If you guys, what I can offer is, if you guys shoot me some questions, I will also kind of get you some resources out there that, of different, ways that school boards have surveyed communities before regarding anything, as far as community engagement goes, as far as any, we'll ask the question about diversity, equity, and inclusion. We'll ask those questions that you guys wanna ask, and we'll see how other school districts have gone out and surveyed and see who they survey, how they do it. I'll do some research for you guys and get that to you. If you guys can start kind of generating, some of the questions that you would like to see, and then we can share resources, and then you guys can come back at it as a group. I agree with everything, all 3 of you, and the conversations that I had, with Matt regarding the chair is, waiting until we had this workshop to be able to come together and have some conversations, because I do think people felt uncomfortable about it. And that's not the intention of board work. The board work is not to put anybody on the spot. It's not to make anybody feel uncomfortable, and it's not to pit anybody against each other. It's basically so that we can get to the work of the district and do what's best for kids. So I, 100% I can do that. I will make sure I do that work this week, and I'll share it with the whole board in my board notes, any resources that I find. I would encourage just to, since Matt can earn his keep as chair, he's gonna be the collector of you guys' questions, and then we can go from there. How does that sound?
So are we pulling the meeting off of the calendar for Wednesday, is that what's happening?
I would ask that
That's
before,
fine, I just
yes,
wanna make sure.
yeah.
Okay.
Thank you for your listening.
Great discussion.
okay, anything else? All right, can I get a motion to adjourn? So, do I have support? Support. Could I have a motion and support, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed?